in a digital world by the Software Freedom Law Center, India. We would like to thank everyone for joining us today as we discuss the preservation of our democratic and electoral values in the technological age. More than 60 countries will go to the polls this year. The collective impact on international relations and human rights will be significant. With events such as today's, SFLC brings together various stakeholders like lawmakers, journalists, academics, technologists, lawyers, students, and citizens to ignite discussions around the rapid intersection of technology and society. On that note, I would like to request the founder of Software Freedom Law Center, Ms. Mishi Chaudhary, to please come and give the opening remarks.
Thank you, Tejaswini. A very warm welcome to you all for this event, Ballots and Bots. You can all come a little further. We're not going to organize a quiz or test whether you were paying attention. Not a class, move further. We're already a little behind schedule. People are trickling in, but we would have more engagement in this. As mine is perhaps the second voice here, and nobody has yet had a chance to use any cliches, so I can use some. This year, 2024, more human beings will participate in democratic elections, or assertedly democratic elections, than ever in the history of humanity. Almost half of the world is going to vote this year. And that happens at a moment when the human race is also passing through another first. Today, human race has machinery to produce more nonsense, the technical term being more bullshit, without much human intervention. This means one of the fundamental beliefs that we've had since 18th century and propagated by the likes of Thomas Jefferson, that in literate or educated society, this belief that democracy, electoral regimes, they would somehow improve our quality of public debate and understanding. An idea that we have liked or lulled ourselves to believe ever since, that idea that somehow elections are going to do better for us does not seem any longer believable or plausible. Mere facts of elections, even the fact of open campaigns and political contests, does not any longer guarantee true human understanding of politics, what the choices before us are today, who are the people who are our choices today, and this is happening across societies. It tells you how bad a decision maker I am. I was born in this democracy and then chose to live in one more, which is the United States. And both of them are now such important places in the world trying to decide the fate of such a large part of the human population, both in terms of impact as well as just sheer numbers. Now, in the post-truth era, this has become even truer because of this machinery that can manipulate language without actual thought, that can create these videos, that which we call AI. What we really mean is that now we have achieved the ability not just to reach people intimately and narrowly through micro-tailored WhatsApp messages. We have now learned how to do it without ever teaching them anything, what exactly is happening in their democracy. Technology of our nervous system has reached a point where political organizations can reach every voter via an extraordinarily narrow, customized system of communication, end-to-end encrypted, so it's not subject to any kind of public surveillance or audit. Everyone, including elected leaders and the democratic institutions they lead, have access to these tools. And they also help create uninformative but very emotionally effective communication at zero cost, at a scale across hundreds of millions of voters. That's the main condition of electoral politics all over the world in a year where half the human race votes. Today, we are going to talk about that. We are going to talk about the stakeholders, the voters, who have a right to transparent and authoritative information regarding elections. We are going to talk about candidates and political parties who should be able to assert where the content originates from their campaign, what is the recourse when their likeness or content is distorted by AI. We're going to talk about political campaigns. We're also going to talk about media. What is their role, if they do still have a role? We're going to talk about election authorities. So all these thorny questions, like the importance of free expression, is there a free speech still valid? Does that protect deepfakes? What happens when there's a deceptive AI election content? And what role are platform companies, whose heads, although may have been of Indian origin, but nobody elected them, but they wield so much power all across the world so far, and are ready to fly the flag of free speech and expression when they're in the Western world, but are also very quick to kowtow to whatever the demands are in the global South. What does it mean? And what it's going to look like. So I'm going to turn it over to Manisha, who's going to actually hold this first panel. Thank you very much. We are very excited to hear what the panelists have to say. And over to you.
Thank you so much. Very good evening to all of you. Thank you for being here. We have a very exciting panel and a good mix, I think. We have a professor of media, an analyst who watches the media, two media professionals who've dedicated their professional lives to fighting misinformation, and two politicians. So I think it'll be very fruitful. And we'd be able to give a good 360-degree view of the problem that we're going to be tackling in this panel, which is misinformation during elections. I'm going to quickly do a round of introduction, though I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with the people here. We have with us Vineet Kumar, who's media analyst, works as an assistant professor at the University of Delhi. He's written books, Media, Mandi Mein Media, and Media Ka Loktantra. Then we have with us Jasmine Shah, who's a senior leader at the Aam Aadmi Party and vice chairperson of the Dialogue and Development Commission of Delhi. We have with us Karen, of course, who is deputy editor at Boom Live. Her main work, the thrust of her organization, what they do is to tackle misinformation. Her most recent work is about how generative AI is being misused to spread misinformation. So we'd like to hear about that from you. And Prateek is joining us online. Has he joined us already? Yes. Okay. I don't see him yet, but we also have with us Manlomo Kiko, who is currently serving as national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, former MLA in the Nagaland Assembly, and he's been an advisor for information technology and communication science and technology to the Chief Minister of Nagaland. Prateek, of course, is the co-founder and editor of Alt News. Very hazy though. Can you guys see it?
Very hazy. Do we need more light?
I think maybe you need to. Can you see us, Prateek?
I can see and hear you quite clearly.
No, we can't hear you. Bit of a...
Hello.
Maybe you need to unmute yourself or something, or we need to unmute him. Yeah, can you hear us, Prateek?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you, but it's still a bit muffled. So we'll try and work around that, when we come to you.
All right.
Now it's perfect. Co-founder, editor of Alt News. He's also written a book, India Misinformed, The True Story, along with Dr. Sumaya Sheikh and Arjun Siddharth. Okay, so let's get cracking. I think what I want to do is maybe start this conversation with the two fact checkers we have on our panel to just get a sense of what we should expect in the upcoming elections. I think in another month or so, we're going to be full on in election season. What can we expect in terms of misinformation, and what are the kind of trends that you guys are seeing? So Karen, you could go first and then I'll go to Prateek. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Manisha. Am I audible? Okay. Thanks, Manisha, for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to take part in this panel. It's a very important conversation. So, to answer your question, I'd say as a fact checker in India, there's so much misinformation that I feel like this job is firefighting all the time. But during elections, it's like a forest fire. And we are already seeing it. So a lot of people, in my opinion, misinformation is a feature and not a bug. And in India, it is weaponized. And the biggest sort of peddlers of misinformation are political parties. I'm sort of sandwiched between two party representatives, but I'm going to speak candidly nevertheless. So, just in terms of what to expect, this is our busiest season. We work tirelessly to do everything we can to stop the spread of misinformation and disinformation during this period, but it's an enormous task. What we're already seeing, and if you follow the fact checking handles, you'll see things like fake polls, cropped images, photoshopped images, doctored videos, speeches, spliced and joined together. Some very creative editing comes out during polls. And now our latest headache is AI. So it's made an already difficult job very, very, almost impossible, I would say. We've already seen the use of AI in the context of an election in India. Uh, a lot of fact checkers debunked videos during the Madhya Pradesh elections that were doctored. The voice track of those videos were actually voice clones. So you had videos of Shivraj Singh Chauhan, and you had a video of Kamal Nath where a voice clone was made for each of them to say things that they had never said, and it was overlaid onto real videos of them.
And how viral did this go?
Extremely viral. It was mostly peddled by party followers. So there are about 5 or 6 such videos, and that was one part of it. The other was KBC videos were doctored to take aim at Shivraj Singh Chauhan. There are about 5 or 6 of those. All of them extremely viral, and more worryingly, they were doctored with AI.
Wow.
Yeah. So if I just look around what we've seen from the elections in Bangladesh and in Pakistan, AI has been used in the same manner, where voice clones have been deployed, and you have candidates whose videos have been doctored and their voices have been cloned, where it appears that they're saying, we don't have faith in the electoral process, we are dropping out of elections, so don't bother voting. Now, this is something that terrifies somebody like me, and I'm sure Pratik as well, because this is subverting the electoral process, and it's extremely dangerous. Even in Pakistan, you had similar examples, but you also had an example of Imran Khan's party using AI because he's imprisoned and crafting that speech. From my talks and everything that I've seen so far, I've been speaking to some of these AI companies that do work with political parties. They all say yes, parties are very interested in using AI. And I said, what about fake news and misinformation? They said yes, they ask us to do that, but we say no. So I said, you say no, but then who's doing it, right? Because there's like so much of it. But I think the worrying thing in all of this is that anyone with a laptop now can make this stuff. You don't need to go to a specialized agency or even somebody who knows code. I made, in the story that I did, I created voice clones of the two leaders from MP, and I found out it's made for dummies. Like anybody can do it. It took me no time. So yeah, fun times ahead.
Hectic times ahead, certainly for you and Pratik, of course. Pratik, do you want to give us a sense of what trends you are witnessing? What are the things that worry you most as a fact checker, and what can we expect in the next 1 month when it comes to misinformation and elections?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay.
Little loud, in fact. Now you can speak normally. Huh?
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, AI is an issue, but uh, I don't feel as bothered about a new way of creating disinformation. The present ways of creating disinformation are already working quite well, and and there's not much that has changed. Let's say from 2019 elections in terms of, actually, that a lot has changed in terms of how people are responding to it. Right now, for example, yesterday there's yet another FIR against T. Raja Singh of BJP because of hate speech. So, from what has changed from 2019 to 2024 is that the amount of hate speech that is being used every single day has increased many folds, and actually we've gone as a society, we have gone from a place where, okay, we were saying that, oh, Muslims are bad, using misinformation, to a place where it is very, one can openly say that do this to Muslims or do that to Muslims, from calling from complete disenfranchisement in all forms. So that is what has changed. We have changed as a country. I mean, we can't just talk about misinformation independently, right? Misinformation, as Karen pointed out, is a feature, it's a tool rather to do something to the population at large. And what is it doing to the population at large? It is making us increasingly hateful. So the trend that has changed is that now, as fact checkers, we are not just dealing with misinformation, but we are dealing with hate speech day in and day out. Yes, AI is going to make it far more easier to create disinformation, but it, for some reason, it is, it is not bothering me as much, because in any case, it was so easy to create disinformation. You take some random clip from a video and you put it there, and then it is being shared by millions of people. So yes, there is another way of creating disinformation. But the primary issue, which all of us have been talking about, the fact checkers have been talking about for all this time, none of that has changed. That is, for example, not one state except for maybe Kerala has has done anything to do with media literacy. So all parties, every political party knows that that misinformation is a big issue, that it is being weaponized. It is being weaponized in not just in political spheres. Every other day, someone elderly is getting a call saying, "Oh, give us OTP or your electricity is going to be cut. Give us this or your this is going to happen," and people are losing money. So it is not just that misinformation or this act of fooling people used by polluting the information ecosystem. It's not just for fooling people at large, but it is also being used to target vulnerable individuals, vulnerable groups to great effect. So we have uh, we have regressed as a society from 2019 to 2024, and misinformation is a large part of that. And there has been nothing new that has been done between 2019 and 2024 to deal with it. And when I say there's nothing new, because we are now talking about a scale where only governments can act. Small fact checkers like Alt News or Boom Live, we can only do so much. It is not even a drop in the ocean. We are at a stage where only governments can act, and governments refuse to do anything about it. So that is where we are at.
So we're going to come back to the question of governments, but we have two politicians with us. And now that we've established the issue with political parties, we're going to ask you some hard questions on this. But let's come to you first. Look, at one level, good politics has always been about, being able to be a good propagandist. How effective you can be with propaganda determines how effective you are as a politician. And I don't think that's recent. It's been like that since history. But you've had a fundamental shift in the past few years when misinformation is a big problem. And now politicians from all parties can be victims as much as propagators. So I want to know from you, because especially your party is at the center, there is something that they can do when it comes to policy. Do you guys recognize this as a real problem? Because it's not just, like I said, you guys can also be victims, and Karen gave us an example from Madhya Pradesh elections. So recognizing this as a problem and active policy interventions, can we expect this from politicians? Because this is also something that serves their interest. And then I'll come to Jasmine.
Yeah. Thank you, Manisha, and thank you, SFLC, for inviting me to this very interesting panel. I'll start with a very basic fact. Among all of us in the panel, I'm the only one who's contested 4 elections in a row. I've won some, I've lost some. There was this debate on the veracity of EVM, which Aam Aadmi Party also raised some time back in the past, and that is technology aiding the conduct of elections. and ensuring that elections are held on a basis of using a technology which enables it to conduct the election efficiently. So, I mean, just giving one example. I feel, coming back to, before I answer your question, because it's a very pointed, direct question, I want to just situate everything to a context where, you know, a lot of elections are fought on the basis of local, issues. And when we go asking for votes, we go asking for votes on the basis of what we are going to do, what if I've been an MLA, what my performance has been, and on the basis of my performance and what is or what are the new agendas I have for the constituency. So these are very basic things, you know, and just to have a sweeping statement against maybe a party or a government is something which is also tantamount to, you know, not recognizing the efforts of many governments. I think Election Commission as an institution has already recognized the dangers of fake news and misinformation, and many steps have been taken to address it, not just from 2014 onwards, but in the past as well. I think recognizing this is very important. For instance, there is this model code of conduct. I'll just give you one example. It's not an act, so you cannot actually impose some penalties on the violation of model code of conduct. But if suppose in Delhi or somewhere else somebody has said something which is violating the model code of conduct, at least actions have been taken in the form of, you know, whatever the law actually allows, you know, in terms of curbing campaigning, removing somebody from star campaign list, just to name a few examples. Having said that, I myself, you know, from a very micro level, when I go to one village in my constituency, the first thing that, you know, because ours is like a very small constituency where we know every household. So because it is below 50,000 votes, unlike in UP where it's above 1 lakh or 2 lakhs. So every household, when we visit them, will ask us basic questions. Give us the water you promised last time. Where is the water in my kitchen? You know, and there are basic issues on the basis of which they vote. There are propagandas. There are stories spread by the opposition. Definitely, they will be in every constituency. But at the center of our democracy, I have realized that in my four elections, the basis on which rural India votes. And I mentioned rural India. Mine is a rural constituency, so and I come from one of the remote part of India. I felt that it is the basic needs of the village, of the community, that is at the center of an election campaign. For instance, we in BJP have this program of going to every booth and promoting the work we have done for the people. In every booth, we sort of communicate what we have done. For instance, under Jal Jeevan Mission, for instance, we promise to provide drinking water, tap water to every household. And wherever it is done, people have voted for us. There is this issue of the issue that you raised, or whether it matters. I think what Mishi has said in her opening remark is something which is a global challenge, but at the local level.
So you feel that misinformation is not really impacting how voters choose their party. That's your assessment.
That is my assessment. You know, that there is at a certain level misinformation impacts the mood of the say campaign. But when it really
comes down
to voting, I think people make their own choice on the basis of what works for them.
I think Karen and Pratik will disagree. But anyway, we'll come back to that. But Jasmine, do you want to come in? Misinformation and its impact on voter choices. Would you agree too that it's really not that big an issue and it doesn't really impact people on how they vote?
Well, definitely not.
We have
Uh,
AAP and BJP agreeing on something. No, you're disagreeing or
No,
you're
no,
agreeing?
I disagreeing.
Okay.
I'm disagreeing with my
Okay.
friend here from BJP, and I think I'm part of what everybody else here on the panel, everybody else has been saying. I would like to point out, two to three broad trends that I see and many of my colleagues in AAP see as happening. And I would say at the top level, we are actually not just bothered about how the misinformation infrastructure or machinery works during elections. And I agree that it becomes a forest fire during election, but it's the damage that it does between elections and how incessant day in and day out, almost a machinery has been created with acts with impunity, without any implications. That has done a lot of damage to our democracy. And that is the most worrying trend if I have to see it. I'll refer to one survey that was done by UNESCO last November, December, uh, in 16 countries, not just India. Uh, and what it found is that 55% of internet users are today consuming majority of their media or news through social media,
Yeah.
and only 45% through traditional media. So the reason why we should all be worried, and I'm glad this conversation is happening, is that this is not a marginal issue that probably it was in 2019 or 2014. With every passing year, more and more people are consuming majority of their information through social media. And therefore, I will state that therefore an attempt is being made by the most powerful political players to create a machinery that feeds into this kind of a media consumption pattern. Now, what we see happening, therefore, as I said, it's not just about elections. What is happening between elections? Now, there is another very worrying trend that legitimate information, legitimate even reporting, and I would state one or two examples, is being suppressed by state machinery, while misinformation, which is called out even by, I would say, fact checkers, stays alive, gets amplified, and faces no consequences. And we are seeing this day in and day out. I'll state an example. I'll not get into details because I don't want to get into trouble, but I have personally faced this. I have retweeted, Manisha, an article by News Laundry on a senior BJP functionary. Retweeted as is without any comment. A defamation was filed on me in the Delhi High Court along with a few AAP leaders. And
Wasn't that the Dhruv Rathi
no,
thing? No.
I'll come to that separately.
We haven't received any
that-
defamation, so I'm curious.
So that is precisely, no, that's very interesting, because what happens is when even me, and this is where political voice is suppressed. It's not just misinformation, but when we try to amplify a legitimate, let's say, a news report, immediately it is treated as defamation. Within 24 hours, stay and take down your tweets, notices, YouTube, stuff, all the, you were not ordered, but it's very interesting. News Laundry was not called, but YouTube and all the other media, Twitter was asked to pull down the article. We see the recent example of Mr. Arvind Kejriwal retweeting a Dhruv Rathi article, making some allegations about how the BJP IT cell operates. Now, the normal course of affair, because there are, let's say, some damning allegations, would be to investigate it, right? If something, a very serious allegation is being made, you will investigate it, ask Dhruv Rathi to submit whatever it is. Nobody knows what's happened to the investigation, but because Mr. Arvind Kejriwal has retweeted it, let's go after him, sue him for defamation, and make sure that he takes down the article. And we are seeing this, legitimate information, I would say, being suppressed. At the same time, I mean, nobody needs to state the list of misinformation spread by the BJP IT cell head Amit Malviya. Many times it's been pointed out by, I would say, Boom as well as Alt News.
Although now they
But-
would agree that most parties now have IT cells competing with each other,
That's
including us.
right. So let's say, I mean, let's
But the
talk
scale
about.
would be, I mean,
let's-
they're the
yeah.
first movers advantage.
No, but point is that when you prove something, right? And I would still sort of say that let's talk about specific examples, but there are umpteen examples when you see BJP, and a lot of people attached to it doing it. There are no consequences even after being proven that this is misinformation. What happens obviously is that it takes a different picture altogether on WhatsApp. I think Misha talked about end-to-end
encryption on WhatsApp, and therefore there's a different scale. I don't think it's the most obvious truth out there. But my worry is if you're not able to stop something which is on visible social media, on YouTube. I mean, I can share a list of YouTube channels who are only peddling fake news day in and day out, and retweeted by all members of a certain political party. But obviously, no action. We can keep knocking the doors of investigative agencies or courts, but for some reason, there is no urge to take prompt action. Final point I would like to make is that, a lot of this misinformation is happening not just by anonymous actors. Increasingly, in the past few years, we are seeing investigative agencies, we are seeing state actors jumping on the wagon and peddling this misinformation. And I'll give you examples. Every time during an election, you will see ED and CBI making raids, making allegations. Suddenly, after the election dies, you will see that matter has gone away. Very recently, just a month ago, ED carried out some raids and no recovery, but allegation made that certain channels were used to channel certain crores of funds to us. Now, these kinds of, and this is the last point I'm making. What happens is, because a state actor has said something without any proof, without any this thing, media feels obligated to spread it. And therefore, what happens increasingly is that the editorial standards, and I would put it out there, that the editorial standards of even mainstream media today are into question, because any lie, any allegation, or anything which is defamatory towards a political party gets spread without question. And what we are told is that, look, they have said it, you issue your response. But there's no
That's a different set of issues altogether, and we want to focus on misinformation. I'm going to come back to you, but I think let's go to Vineet. As the journalists on the panel have spoken about the issues we are facing. Both the politicians, of course, have said that for him it's not a big issue. Says that okay, it is not something that impacts real world electoral choices.
So I didn't say it's not a big issue. I said government is at their level. We have institutions addressing it, constitutionally mandated institution addressing it. Number two. Number three, at the rural level, in my experience, and I've gone to many states during elections for campaigning, for managing campaign and all that. So I know for a fact that
it's not defining voter choices.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's what I meant.
Yes, absolutely. Got that.
But I want to add one thing.
Yes, but can we first go to him and then we'll come to you?
Yeah.
Because he hasn't spoken yet, so we'll just get some response from him. So multiple issues. Now, one is the issue of media. एक तो आपको WhatsApp में आ रहा है, YouTube में आ रहा है, वो अलग बात है. Today, what is true is also that you have mainstream media channels that spread misinformation and they have way more credibility. कि भाई Z News में देखा, आज तक में देखा तो ठीक ही होगा. That is one big issue of media actively spreading misinformation, not having the editorial standards the way Jasmine spoke about. The second thing is of government interest. Are we at a situation right now or a position right now where governments at center and state actively want to quell this problem? And that is where, it comes to, because 2 or 3 fact checkers can't really do much when you're faced with a volley of misinformation. So please, your views on that.
शुक्रिया SFLC, शुक्रिया मनीषा. दरअसल हम लोग जितनी बातें कर रहे हैं यहाँ न्यू अराइवल की बात कर रहे हैं, अभी लॉन्च हुआ और उसी पर बात कर रहे हैं. AI है और साउंड क्लोनिंग है, लेकिन जो आज से 4.5 साल 5 साल 10 साल पहले चल रहा वो क्या है, वो मीडिया के सिरे से जब हम देखते हैं तो मीडिया में एक ऐसी जमात तेजी से बढ़ रही है जो बिल्कुल लगता है कि वो दीवार का रवि है और बस उसने हाथ पर टैटू नहीं बनाया है कि मेरा बाप दैट, लेकिन वो कह रहा है कि हमें गलत पढ़ाया गया, हमें स्कूल कॉलेज में गलत पढ़ाया गया, हमें भारत छोड़ो आंदोलन के बारे में गलत पढ़ाया गया, हमें नेहरू के बारे में गलत पढ़ाया गया. यानी मीडिया में एक पोस्ट इलिटरेट कम्युनिटी, एक नए सिरे से निरक्षर जमात पैदा हो रही है जिसे अपने स्कूल कॉलेज की पढ़ाई पर एतबार नहीं है. ऐसे में जब एक खबर पर हम फेक न्यूज़ की या फेक कंटेंट की बात करते हैं तो हमारे सामने जो सवाल है वो बहुत बड़ा है कि आपने जो पढ़ाई 12 साल 15 साल लगा कर की है, आपको उसी पर एतबार नहीं, तो लिहाजा आपकी पूरी ट्रेनिंग पर आपको भरोसा नहीं है और आप कभी इस देश के इतिहासकारों को कोसते हैं, कभी अपने प्रोफेसर को कोसते हैं, कभी अपने संस्थानों को कोसते हैं. तो ये है क्या? एक तो ये है कि पीछे जो कुछ भी किया गया, और कोई भी राजनीतिक पार्टी हो सकती है, इसमें कोई एक दल का मसला नहीं, मैं सिर्फ यहाँ मीडिया कर्मियों की बात कर रहा हूँ, देश के प्रमुख चैनलों के, अखबारों के जो एडिटोरियल बोर्ड में है, वो बता रहे हैं कि हमें गलत पढ़ाया गया है और हमें गलत ट्रेनिंग दी गई है। तो इसमें ये समझना है कि एआई के पहले ये जो लोग 15 साल 20 साल से पत्रकारिता कर रहे हैं, वो अपने को कहाँ आज दे रहे हैं। दूसरी बात ये कि हम जिस दौर में ये सारी बातें कर रहे हैं, वो एरा 404 जर्नलिज्म एरा है, जिसका मतलब ये है कि जिन पत्रकारों ने 15 साल 18 साल 20 साल पहले जो रिपोर्ट की, उसे अपने अलग अलग प्लेटफॉर्म से गायब कर रहे हैं। क्यों गायब कर रहे हैं, इस पर बात होनी चाहिए। यानी जिस पत्रकार ने अपनी जो रिपोर्टिंग की है, अपना जो काम किया है, वो उसे प्लेटफॉर्म से क्यों हटा रहे हैं? वो किस बात की मतलब क्या वजह है इसकी? क्या उन्होंने रिपोर्टिंग गलत की और पूरा एक पब्लिक स्फीयर को उन्होंने गुमराह किया, या फिर उन्हें लगता है कि अभी जो हम कर रहे हैं और जो हमारा इंक्लिनेशन है, जो हमारा झुकाव है, उसके हिसाब से ये सही नहीं है? ये दूसरा सवाल है। और तीसरी जो आपके सवाल पर मैं यहाँ आता हूँ, जो मीडिया के सिरे से आप कह रहे हैं, हम लोग जितनी बातें मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन की कर रहे हैं, फेक न्यूज की कर रहे हैं, तो लग रहा है हम इससे लेकर बहुत चिंता में हैं, ये बहुत बुरी चीज है। लेकिन हमें ये देखना चाहिए कि इसका लाभार्थी कौन है। इसका एक समुदाय है ना जो इसका लाभार्थी है, बेनिफिशियरी इसका है, उसको उसका लाभ मिल रहा है। और जब हम इस तरह से गूगल करते हैं, तो हमें बहुत सारे ऐसी स्टोरी मिलती है जिसका शीर्षक टाइटल ये होगा, पार्ट टाइम पॉलिटिशियन फुल टाइम ट्रोल। यानी उनका पूरा पॉलिटिकल करियर इस तरह से बना है। तो ये जो पार्ट टाइम पॉलिटिशियन और फुल टाइम ट्रोल है, वो कौन है? और तब हमें लगता है कि जिस पर हम चिंता जाहिर कर रहे हैं, वो दरअसल उनका एक करियर एनहांसमेंट है, उनका पॉलिटिकल करियर इस बात से बन रहा है। और इस तरह से जब हम बात करते हैं, तो कभी भी उनके लिए मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन या फेक न्यूज या डीप फेक कभी चिंता की बात नहीं होगी। उनके लिए तो अवसर है, उनके लिए तो उसमें उनका करियर बन रहा है।
आपदा में अवसर।
इस अब आपदा नहीं रहने पर वो तो एक दूसरे सिरे में जाने की बात हो गई। और दूसरी बात इसमें मैं ये जोड़ना चाहूंगा कि आप जब मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन को, फेक न्यूज को पूरी तरह इस तरह से समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि एक एजेंसी है, एक फैक्ट चेकर है और ये इन सारी चीजों को ठीक करेगी, लेकिन ये जो मिलावट है वो इतना माइक्रो लेवल का मिलावट है कि प्राइम टाइम की जो खबरें आ रही है उसमें फेक कंटेंट है। मैं एक उदाहरण यहाँ मनीषा देना चाहूंगा। देश का नंबर 1 कहने वाला चैनल, सबसे तेज करने वाला चैनल, 6 साल पहले से ब्रिटिश पाथे पर वो वीडियो क्लिप है जिसमें बताया जा रहा है कि सेंट्रल सेक्रेटरी, जिसमें भारतीय संसद जो है उसकी बालकनी में देश के पहले प्रधानमंत्री कैसे संबोधित करते हैं, और वहां पर मॉप करके अपने एंकर को खड़ा करते हैं। और वहां पर देश का प्रधानमंत्री इस तरह से आगे आ रहे हैं कि जैसे देखें कि देश के नंबर 1 चैनल की एंकर कैसे दिख रही हैं, कैसे एंकरिंग कर रहे हैं, किस कारण से वो नंबर 1। और ये सब ब्रिटिश पाथी पर है। उसके बाद उसका जो पूरा कॉन्सेप्ट है, रेहान फजल की स्टोरी बीबीसी से आपने उठाया, जिन जिन किताबों से आपने वो कंटेंट उठाया, कहीं उसका नाम नहीं दिया है। इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब यह है कि एक चैनल को देश के दर्शकों को नागरिक बनाना चाहिए, बेहतर जागरूक मतदाता बनाना चाहिए। वो आप उसे ठीक से जागो के तहत ठीक से ग्राहक भी नहीं बना पा। ये जो सब्सक्रिप्शन, जो पैसे खर्च कर रहे हैं चैनल पर, 20 रुपए 25 रुपए, आप उसको ढंग से, मतलब आप उसे एक बेहतर ग्राहक की तरह भी कंज्यूम नहीं कर रहे।
So media not playing its role to inform
और
people.
दूसरी बात एक कि इसमें सरकार क्या कर सकती है। सरकार बहुत बड़ी मशीनरी है। सरकार, अभी जितने उदाहरण दिए गए उसमें मिनट में सरकार कर सकती है, लेकिन सरकार की इच्छा शक्ति जो राज्य के स्तर पर और केंद्रीय स्तर पर है, उसमें यह है कि ये सवाल सिर्फ कागजी तौर पर नियमों के बनाने से है। बहुत सारी चीजें जो हमारे आंखों के सामने दिखाई दे रहा है और उसमें स्टेक है, और ये स्टेक अलग अलग एजेंसियों की है। वो एजेंसियां सरकार से भी जुड़ती हैं, वो एजेंसियां पब्लिक इंस्टीट्यूशन से भी जुड़ती हैं, और मुझे कहीं इस पर बहुत ही सीरियसली, बहुत गंभीरता से कोई कार्रवाई होती हुई दिखाई नहीं देती। मैं इसमें दूरदर्शन की बात को शामिल कर दूं। आप दूरदर्शन को के इतिहास को देखेंगे तो इसे गवर्नमेंट पपेट के तौर पर एक तरह से बदनाम रहा है, और अलग अलग दौर की सरकार में इसे सरकारी कहा गया। राजीव गांधी के समय इसे राजीव दर्शन कहा जाता था। इंदिरा गांधी के बारे में कहा जाता था कि नेहरू वॉज विजनरी, शास्त्री वॉज रिविजनरी एंड इंदिरा वॉज टेलीविजनरी, ऐसा कहा जाता। तो आज भी अगर ऐसा सरकार के नियमों को, सरकार की नीतियों को, सरकार की पॉलिसी को सरकार की मान लिए वो तारीफ में दिखाते हैं, कोई बुरी बात नहीं। लेकिन दूरदर्शन के प्राइम टाइम जो फ्लैगशिप प्रोग्राम है, आप देखिए, आप दहशत में आ जाएंगे।
वहाँ पे हाथापाई भी हुई।
हाथापाई नहीं, वहाँ रोज एक बयान है, उस बयान पर आधे घंटे का कार्यक्रम है, और उसका नतीजा और निष्कर्ष यह है कि लोकतंत्र के ढांचे में विपक्ष की जरूरत नहीं। और ये विपक्ष कोई राजनीतिक दल नहीं, विपक्ष एक प्रॉपर स्ट्रक्चरल फॉर्मेट है जो किसी भी लोकतंत्र में होना चाहिए।
So you wanted to come in, Mr. Kiko, so you can come in, and then I'll go to Karen.
So I think the general framework for this conversation is that we see various issues and it affects all political parties. The fact that we should be focusing on those issues rather than discussing details, as my friend has already said. Because when we discuss detail, then we come to the issue of, yes, you have rightly said, there are issues that we take up against certain political figures, both today and in the past also, because of certain aspirations and expectations we have. And when those are not met, and it actually has it has been actually the basis for why many states have, been won over by, say, BJP. So I think we'll have to focus on what are the specifics. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So maybe you can, okay, I'll come to Karen, and then maybe we can look at the specific.
No, I'll just give one example. For instance, my friend mentioned ED rate. Look at the past,
Okay, this
recovery.
conversation will go back and forth.
Exactly. Look at the
It'll be a
past
debate
recovery.
between AAP and BJP.
In the
and misinformation
UPA
will be lost.
They recovered only 5,000 crores. Today you are saying it's not effective. We have actually recovered 1,22,000 crores.
That's highly debatable, but we'll not get into ED raids now because then it'll become AAP versus BJP. Let's stick to misinformation. And I think each of, we don't have much time actually, and we want to take some audience questions. The specific issue of misinformation, irrespective of whatever political ideology you're from, whichever party you're from, this is a big problem. You had a global risk report that recently said that India has the highest instances of misinformation as as a risk. So the specific issue of misinformation and what can we expect in terms of solutions. Maybe we can go to Karen and Prateek, and then I think the politicians on our panel can step in with specific policy interventions that you guys think can happen and we can expect in the next 5 years. Karen, solutions to this. Often, like, young people are like, kya kare? Our parents are addicted to like things coming on WhatsApp. How do we get them out of it? How do we fight misinformation? Everyone seems a bit tired and lost.
Yeah, but it's not just the middle-aged or their parents and all who are consuming misinformation. It's increasingly also the younger lot and as well, because I think one of the panelists pointed out that the way young people are consuming the news is mainly through the platforms and your apps and all of that. And those platforms itself are very problematic in the way they have been built. So there is it's dangerous to think that their ideas about issues that this country is facing, or issues in the world in general, is at its core being shaped by like what they're coming across on social media. But in terms of solutions, this is a really difficult fight, and it cannot be single-handedly be fought by fact checkers alone. It needs a multi sort of actor or different sort of stakeholders coming together, which is the only way I see how the governments and the platforms are the two different sort of pillars in this, but it of course includes just every citizen, I would say, because it is having a disproportionate influence on their lives. And yes, we need academics as well. In fact, I keep complaining that I get queries from researchers everywhere else in the world except researchers in India, and they're asking me about misinformation in India, but I really get queries from somebody studying misinformation in India. And that to me says a lot, right? So, yeah.
Pratik, policy prescriptions, even if no one's listening to us, what can be done at the government level? Because, like you said, that's the only way where it can start.
I'll come to that, but I have one comment before that.
Yeah.
You know, this if social media is a crime scene, then the way we talk about this crime scene is that we are so reticent to talk about who are the accused. You know, I mean, how do you deal with a crime scene when you don't want to talk who are the accused? And we are saying, oh, we are not never going to name the accused. This could be accused. And even when two people have committed differing degree of crimes, we'll say no, they have committed the same crime. So, I mean, how do you even solve a crime when we are not willing to recognize what is the real issue? I mean, the here we are talking about, oh, election commission has done that, elections commission has done that. We are, you know, Amit Malviya, the amount of misinformation he puts out. Till date, he has deleted one single tweet. That tweet was when he put out a collage of Nehru with different women. Okay. And he was called out. In all these years, he's deleted that one single tweet. He heads the national IT cell. He has put out so much misinformation. Has he deleted a single tweet? There are so many tweets which have been proven to be false. Now, if the
And also,
main
it's
person who's
sad, some of the tweets have resulted in FIRs against people.
Yeah.
Falsely.
Yeah. So number one, this is a false equivalence that all political parties are equally responsible. No, I don't think all political parties in India are equally responsible for misinformation. BJP is definitely is most responsible for misinformation in India. I don't think we can deal with this issue when we keep sort of dealing in this false, equivalence between different political parties. For example, about a month or two ago, there was one sort of Congress volunteer in Gujarat, not volunteer, is more than a volunteer. He put out some tweet which was false. And that night at 2 a.m., Gujarat police was at his doors. Tell me, does this happen with anyone from BJP? It never happens. So let's not do this false equivalence business. The issue is that the political party that is ruling this country is singularly responsible for putting out enormous amounts of misinformation, and they have created a huge infrastructure with a lot of money. There are companies, there are professional companies which are participating in it. There have been so many investigations which have linked Facebook pages, YouTube accounts, Instagram accounts to professional companies where they are using the same misinformation, they are glamorizing it, they're making nice memes and putting it out. So that is the primary problem, that a party with enormous amounts of money is actually responsible for the growing issue. Now, if we don't catch the issue by the horn, we are not going to be able to solve it. Now, then we can talk about the policy issue once we've recognized the issue. Once you recognize the issue, yes, the policy is that I don't expect any BJP state to ever come with a media literacy course. It is not going to happen. So then it is up to other political parties to figure out what they want to do. But unfortunately, I don't think politics, is there a power cut?
We can hear you.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't think politics in India looks sort of long term. They only look short term. How do you win the next election? And that is where something like a media literacy course, which will take forever, is never on the priority. So, yes, I would, as a fact checker, or as we also have a small team in Alt News, about a 4-member team where we are trying to build a curriculum for class 7, 8, 9. But I know, I mean, that is such a tiny effort. If something has to be done, then it has to be done at the level of the government, and it is for the political parties to decide what they want to do it, and especially those who are facing the brunt of misinformation. It is for them to figure out what they want to do, and if they don't want to do anything about it, then we are just going to regress and regress as a society. I mean, we have seen, for example, what happened in the US, where people were brainwashed to the point that they went and attacked what was equivalent of the Indian Parliament, right? That is the level of brainwashing that misinformation can do. So if you want to shut our eyes and not look at the issue, then that's a different matter. But that is what is happening right now, according to me. And in this scenario, first we have to recognize the issue, then we can talk about policy. But right now, I don't think we are even recognizing what the issue is.
Manu, would you like to respond to that? The charge that there is a reward within the BJP for someone who makes said misinformation. So he gives the example of Amit Malya. Would you like to respond to that? And in terms of like a media literacy course, why don't governments come together and have that in schools? because that's the best way. If you can tell kids right at school, you know, how to distinguish between good information, bad information, it could really help.
I think the second point which you mentioned is right. I mean, but we'll have to determine what is good information, what is bad information. But you know,
But
that the
people
fact
design
that
curriculum.
he says that BJP is this, that, I mean, that's misinformation. You know, he has a run-in with Amit Malviya for the longest time. If you look at their tweets, I follow him on Twitter, I know. But that's besides the point. You know, I just
Okay.
want to say that I think it should be, as a nation, it should be applicable to all political parties. I think this misinformation and certain misinformation which goes beyond, you know, anyone's control, which is faced by every country in the world, is not limited to one political party. I think, you know, on the whole, if we are to have a serious issue, serious policy, I think we need to acknowledge that it is not limited to a party. You know, when the party says that Prime Minister Modi has done this development for the country, it's not misinformation. And there's a, you know, run-in with Amit Malviya. I think this is something everybody knows. I don't think you should, yeah.
So Jasmine, aap stand on getting a media literacy curriculum going in the Delhi government schools. That sounds like a great idea. Why would
Sorry, I just
why would
want to,
channels?
can I interrupt one?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Go ahead.
You know, in the past, there has been, by the Election Commission, this provision that any candidate who's filing nomination should also include details about his social media pages. So that there is a active monitoring of what he does, and then the other election laws also applies to social media as such, to his social media page, in terms of what kind of information is putting out, whether it's fake, whether it's misinformation. You know, this monitoring is done, and action is taken on the basis of that.
Jasmine, you want to come in?
I'll come to your question in just a minute, but I wanted to thank Pratik for putting out the elephant in the room. I think this conversation doesn't mean much without really stating who's the biggest beneficiary or labharthi of this entire. And I'm saying it's a systematic infrastructure that's been created. And if my friend here from BJP still has any doubts, we can do a split poll in this room, but we can avoid that for the time being. No,
I want to just
let me finish my, and you can then come.
Guys, we don't want
Now
a public debate.
But I mean,
no.
I don't think it's
But
a debate. But let me come.
solutions. Let's come to
Solutions.
solutions,
So now I'm
which
coming
we all
to
can
that.
agree on.
See, we have to first to the point of what can governments do. 100%, there is a longer term solution, there is a short term solution, right? The longer term, yes, making our next generation more aware, more discerning about what is fake news, what is real news, absolutely. I, in fact, am committing to reach out to Pratik as well as whoever else is working on a curriculum like this. We internally, inside the government system, we do not have, I would say, the expertise to design such a curriculum. But as a government that prides itself on education reforms, that has introduced the happiness curriculum, entrepreneurship curriculum for kids at all ages, we would be more than happy to take it up, not just in Delhi, but also Punjab as well as MCD, wherever we have a government.
That's great.
Second, the role here of the government and the more immediate basis, I think, is the biggest concern, because we are poisoning our masses, we are poisoning our voters on a day-to-day basis. And yes, the most immediate solution is let's have a regulatory, let's have a law. But we are looking at what is happening with the regulatory capture. Even the ECI has not survived the regulatory capture, where the Chief Justice of India has been kicked out by BJP to make ECI a completely biased body in terms of selection of the Election Commission. So I feel
you can come in the question now. Okay, you can come.
You can.
We'll give you the mic and then you can.
But having 2 out of 3 selection panels from the ruling party.
Okay, but we can stick to misinformation.
And no, so
because then we'll go all
but
over.
this is the policy. I'm saying the fact is there is no easy answer without talking about why solutions are not immediate. It is more long term. The final point I'll make is that maybe in this short term, I would expect more and more social censure, at least about actors and people putting out misinformation, to be an answer. But again, in an environment where there is a threat, even amongst the prominent citizens of the society, that I will be threatened with an FIR. If I call out somebody from the ruling party, I'll be immediately jailed. We are seeing umpteen examples. So I fear there are no easy answers. Yes, we have a generational answer, but I think it may be too late.
But censure is a good thing. I think if you can call out systematically politicians who indulge in misinformation, that at least some sort of representation. Things you want to come in and to listen. The hair bhi ya nahi hai.
पहली बात तो ये कि जब आप स्कूल कॉलेज में इस तरह के कैरिकुलम की बात करते हैं तो मुझे इन सरोगेट पे मुझे एक एलिगेशन सा लगता है कि इस देश के सारे युवा और स्कूल कॉलेज के इसलिए उन्हें सबसे ज्यादा
वो रोक सकते हैं अगर उनको बचपन से ही सिखा रहे हैं तो।
ये मुझे बहुत ही सपाट सा लगता है क्योंकि हम देख रहे हैं मैंने इस्तेमाल किया पोस्ट के लिए यानी देश में जो सबसे बेहतरीन पढ़े हुए लोग हैं मीडिया की पढ़ाई करके आए हैं 15 साल से एडिटोरियल बोर्ड में वो फेक न्यूज फैलाने का काम कर रहे हैं और ये कोई एलिगेशन नहीं आप उनके ट्विटर और दूसरे सोशल मीडिया प्लेटफॉर्म पर जाकर देखिए यानी बहुत पढ़े लिखे लोग फेक न्यूज इसलिए फैला रहे हैं क्योंकि बहुत ही सुनियोजित ढंग से ये काम हो रहा है। दरअसल फेक न्यूज नैरेटिव खड़ा करने का एक रॉ मटेरियल है। जब तक फेक न्यूज नहीं होगा तब तक नैरेटिव आप खड़ा कर ही नहीं सकते और इसलिए एक डे टू डे फीडिंग है ये। आप जब इसका मुझे सॉल्यूशन पूछते हैं तो मुझे साफ साफ ये बात समझ में आती है और पहली बात ये कि जिस दिन ट्रोल को जिस दिन मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन फैलाने वाले को जिस दिन फेक न्यूज को बहुत चेरिश करने वाले लोगों को हीरोइक प्रेजेंस मिलता रहेगा तब तक इस पर कोई बात नहीं हो सकती। जब तक आप उनको डिमीन नहीं करेंगे जब तक आप उन्हें आउट ऑफ बॉक्स लेकर ये नहीं बताएंगे कि आप जो कर रहे हैं वो सच में गलत है तब तक इसमें बात तब तक उस पर बात बनेगी नहीं। लेकिन हम देख इसके बिल्कुल उल्टा रहे हैं। दूसरी बात ये है कि बहुत दिलचस्प है और बहुत ही खतरनाक भी है कि जो मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन फैलाते हैं कई बार वही उस पर पैनल डिस्कशन और टॉक करते हैं और उनको बहुत सेलिब्रेट किया जाता है। तो मतलब दाता भी वही पीर भी वही तो आप किस धर्म की बात कर रहे हैं मैं समझ ही नहीं पा रहा हूँ। थैंक यू।
ग्रेट।
मैं एक बार विनीत जी को रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहूंगा। एक मिनट विनीत जी को रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहूंगा।
हाँ Prateek, go for it and then we'll take some questions. We have some time. I think we have 15 minutes. Yeah, go ahead Prateek.
हाँ स्कूल कॉलेज इसलिए ये नहीं बोला जा रहा है विनीत जी कि वहीं से शुरू हो रहा है। प्रॉब्लम तो पूरा सिस्टमिक है यानी लेकिन स्कूल कॉलेज इसलिए क्योंकि वहां एक संगठित रूप से पढ़ाई होती है तो आसान है उस ग्रुप को रीच करना भी। स्कूल हम जब ऑलरेडी हम लोग 5-6 स्कूल में पढ़ा चुके हैं इधर कलकत्ता में और जब 7th-8th स्टैंडर्ड में पढ़ा रहे हैं तो एक अच्छा रिजल्ट दिख रहा है हम लोग को और आसान है उस ग्रुप को रीच आउट करना आसान है वहां तब तक आपका ब्रेन वॉशिंग नहीं हुआ है वहां से शुरू करना आसान है। ये मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ कि एक लॉन्ग टर्म सोल्यूशन है। ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि वहीं वो लोग के लिए हो रहा है बट मेरे हिसाब से वहां सोल्यूशन इंप्लीमेंट करना ज्यादा आसान है ना कि अगर लेट्स से इफ वी टेक द एज ऑफ 40-50 दोस आर आउट ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइज्ड एजुकेशन हाउ डू यू गेट देम टू do a media literacy course. It is very difficult.
Organized तौर पे you can reach out to people. Okay, so let's take questions. Please keep your questions brief and please make sure they're questions, not statements. Go ahead. Yeah. Who's your question to?
So,
Mr. Kiko.
If we were to take what, others on the panel have said time and time again, that, that we really switch quite a bit. I want to try to better understand the incentives here. So as you said, you have fantastic programs for water, electricity, infrastructure, which in many ways are popular. Mr. Modi is like one of the most popular prime ministers in the history. What in your understanding, if you take these arguments at face value, what is the incentive structure for spreading disinformation and misinformation when Amit Madhya, others, when you have an actual track record to stand on, why resort to using this system?
It's a very good question, yeah.
See, I mean, I don't think there's any incentive for spreading misinformation as such in the party. I mean, I just want to say that Amit Malviya is the IT cell head of the BJP, and he's also co-in-charge of West Bengal. So in the elections, he ensures that there is a lot of misinformation which is spread there in West Bengal. So he ensures that from the party perspective, he challenges those and he puts out across our agendas. I think that's something which time and again we have been getting into. I think we should not get into that. But at the end of the day.
But you're saying he ensures it.
No, he is challenging the propaganda against the BJP. And that's being considered sometimes.
We
just don't acknowledge that it is a problem.
But I think the gentleman has a good point.
I'm
that
just saying there's no incentive for that.
Go ahead. Question. Okay.
So I don't think there's anyone from the Congress in the House, so I'm going to take that stand and say.
Are you from the Congress?
No, I'm not.
No.
I'd like to be, but
Okay.
not yet. Not yet, I should say. Right?
Okay. But you want to chip in?
I'm Rahul. I'm an independent consultant.
Okay.
I used to work at Google, so I've got about 15 years in the tech industry. And, I was lucky to be in Myanmar during the 2015 election, building on issues that we're discussing today. There was the Rohingya crisis, so I worked on hate speech with the US government. I was very fascinated by someone's remark saying constitution when the ECI issue came up, right? So a classic example is January 26th, mygov.in posted the 1950 version of the preamble because the words secular is not counted in that. So clearly, BJP sticking to the constitution is bullshit, I would say, right? Secondly, they make statements like Congress.
Okay, but what's your question?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So Congress.
First they
No,
make.
we're discussing misinformation, right? And incentives.
No, but let's keep it brief and stick
Yeah.
to questions
And-
because then we want to go to others also.
And so then my question was actually, what is the incentive? But then is the answer that there is no incentive for the current government, which then goes back to the fact that we can't rely on government or policy interventions coming from this government. Okay, government, I shouldn't say this government, but because this government has been in power for
Okay,
10
got it.
years. So who gives those interventions out then? Where does the civil society come in? And
So
you know.
who wants to take the question on civil society? Because we're giving up on governments.
Yeah, but that's because you said there is no incentive,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So
Civil society's role, does anyone want to come on? Karen, you want
अभी
to come
मैं
in?
जो पैटर्न देख
हाँ.
रहा हूँ मनीषा, वो
हाँ.
सिविल सोसाइटी का इंटरवेंशन इस तरह से है कि फैक्ट को फेक न्यूज में कन्वर्ट करके वो कुछ सुधार कर रहे हैं।
हाँ.
मसलन ये आपने देखा होगा कि देश के नंबर 1 चैनल की न्यूज एंकर ने जो नहीं कहा, उनका भी वॉइस क्लोन करके चलाया और मौजूदा सरकार की बड़ी आलोचना की। अमूमन वो कभी करती नहीं। तो ये बड़ी दिलचस्प है कि आप सुराज भी लाना चाहते हैं, मतलब सतयुग भी लाना चाहते हैं, तो फेक न्यूज के जरिए आएगा, ऐसा सिविल सोसाइटी को लगने लगा है।
Any more? Okay, maybe that gentleman. Yeah, you. How much more time do we have, Mishi? 10 minutes more? Okay, go ahead.
Both Boom and Altitude started with debunking fake news and misinformation on social media, which is like Snopes used to do back in the day in the US. They would call out trends or messages on WhatsApp, and this would be often non-political also, some real life events, some health misinformation and things like that. From then we realized that a lot, like Dr. Kumar mentioned, a lot of media persons are also spreading fake news, often on their shows or in their columns. And then again, all news or Boom would step in, and sometimes News Laundry would step in and fact check. We have an ecosystem of independent people doing that on YouTube also. But this has only been checking either the things that go viral on social media or WhatsApp, or that's coming out of media, mainstream media. But we increasingly see a lot of misinformation and disinformation being spread from art, literature, and media like movies. There's a whole ecosystem of propaganda. Movies being made. There are books published by big publishers, which are known to have misinformation. They sometimes be called out by historians or credible literary people, and we've seen this in across segments. So who kind of fights that evil? Because that is also something which kind of affects everybody and imprints on everybody while they are not being political. They go out to watch a movie, but they are being
So
shown
fighting
something.
propaganda, which is kind of different from out and out fake news, because it always uses a kernel of truth and then twists it, and it's more relatable and consumable. But I personally, I think, I mean, journalists can't fight propaganda in that scale. We can only report and go out, put the facts out there, but we can't now make movies. But go ahead. Does anyone want to take this whole?
I can respond to that.
Yeah, go for it, Pratik.
So, when the Kerala Story movie was made, the movies, one second, I'm just going to bring out the story that we did. The movie said 32,000 Kerala women in ISIS. And that basically 30,000 women in Kerala have gone to ISIS. Then we did a fact check story, and the movie title on the trailer title on YouTube was changed. And then the Prime Minister went and endorsed the film. So, and the Prime Minister in a rally, once again, I'll take out the details of the rally. The Prime Minister in a rally in
During
Ballari
Karnataka elections.
during Karnataka elections said that, basically endorsed the film. So it is not that it is not possible to report on this. It is not that it is not possible to do it, but when when the endorsement comes from the highest position, then what do you do? Then this is a film which goes and makes crores. So that is what we're saying, that there's a whole industry, there's an instrumentation here where falsehood is first made and then propagated from the highest echelons.
And the reach of the article would never nearly match the reach of the movie in the screen. So that's why,
There's
like,
no way. How
at that
can
level,
how can
fighting it is
anyone
hard.
match the Prime Minister of India when he goes and endorses a completely bullshit film? How no one can match that.
Okay. I think you had a question. No ladies asking any questions? No, okay.
Yes, thank you.
To you, and then we'll wrap.
Yes, fascinating discussion. So I am happy that the elephant in the room was finally brought in, but we are still missing out on the gorilla, the big
My
18
God,
pound
I'm
gorilla.
scared. Who's the
So
gorilla?
which is the platforms.
Ah,
The platforms have
yes.
got a completely free pass in this entire discussion, and I want all of the panelists to maybe spend a minute or two to speak about the roles that platforms will play, especially given the context that they don't have any stakes, they don't have any
Mm.
skin in the game of preventing democracy or free speech or any of that sort in India. And of course, from their perspective or their vantage point, the more violence or the more misinformation leads to more engagement, more eyeballs, and more advertising. So, uh, in effect, they are being incentivized to ignore the issue. And I just want to hear.
So platform accountability, anyone wants to comment on that? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't represent a platform, so I just wanted to clarify that. But I agree, platforms have a huge responsibility because they're almost now gatekeepers of information, whether we like it or not, and when they say they don't want to be arbiters of truth, we should believe them. But everything that we've seen so far, especially with the big four and the big platforms that they talk about, and I think Mishi spoke about that in her opening remarks as well, that they talk about free speech and democracy in the US, but in India you have X withholding accounts of farmers. I just put out a story today about a massive network of shadow pages, which is running an entire political, this sort of proxy fighting against opposition leaders, and all of it has spent over 2 crores since it went live in November. That's 2 crores in 4 months. Who has that kind of money? So platforms, they have to realize that if they are going to be bullied and co-opted by governments, then as users, we have the power to either say, I will leave this platform entirely, which I feel like that's the road that we're headed. So I agree that they are a very important stakeholder in this fight, and unfortunately they are not living up to the job they're expected to do.
Okay, we just have time for one last question. That gentleman there, and then our panelists are going to be here for a while, and then you guys can come and chat with them and come with your questions.
Hi, I'm Asif, lawyer and independent researcher. My question is to the honorable member of the BJP. So you just said that the government is taking initiatives to tackle the misinformation, as you have just said. But then you have created a monster called FCU, Fact Checking Unit, by amending the IT rules and inserting Rule 315B. But there have been instances where the government itself called the very genuine news as a fake news. We have the examples of Reporters Collective's report of June 2022, where it was said that the Ministry of Women and Child Development has made Aadhaar mandatory for the Anganwadi children for availing the benefits. And when this report was published, it was your nodal agency, the PIV, that called it fake news. But again, within 2 months, the government had to issue the clarification that no, it was not a fake news, but yes, they had to issue a clarification that Aadhaar is not mandatory. So by enforcing FCU, we again fear, and since we all know the very verdict of the Bombay High Court, and we fear that if the third judge's opinion goes in favor of you, and there is no stay on the implementation of the rules, so it's going to harm more. And there is a fear.
So
that
governments in
genuinely-
charge of checking fake news could just lead to a situation
you.
where correct news is being called fake news. Would you like to respond to that?
I think there is an active and very responsive government, which actually, when things are pointed out, response. I would like to, limit my statement to that. He has already answered by, the statement he has already made.
Okay, great. So with that, we'll have to wrap this up. If you have more questions, you can just reach out to the panelists and talk to them. And we have the next panel coming up. Thank you, guys. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you, dear panel. Thanks, Prateek.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Fantastic panel, and we conclude a very insightful discussion. I would like to request the operations lead of Software Freedom Law Center, Ms. Mamta Verma, to please present a token of appreciation for our panelists.
Yeah. तो ये इसके
Before we break for tea, I just wanted to share that we have books by Mr. Kikon and Mr. Kumar. There's one which is called His Majesty's Headhunter, which is on the siege of Kohima that shaped the world, and a book by Mr. Vineet Kumar called Media Ka Loktantra. They're both available on Amazon, but we will also be playing a quiz outside for the books. So please join us. It will be during the tea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
क्या हटा दीजिए।
Look at these jokers. No, I'm serious. Look at these fucking shit birds. We can't let them back in, smearing shit on the walls of democracy. Now, hey, I know I'm old as fuck. I get it, America. I'm tired. I'm slowing down. I make Al Pacino look like Timothy fucking Chalamet. I know I wasn't your first choice in 2020. Hell, I wasn't my first choice. You think I like getting a syringe of B12 plunged in my ass every morning just to stay alert enough to run this country? Shit, no. But these are the cards we're dealt, Jack. I'm going to be so hopped up on goofballs and cocaine. I'm going to make Don Jr. look normal. Reality is I can't step down and let who? Kamala run? Have you seen her as Veep? Get the fuck out of here. My priorities in 2024. Number one is I'm not the guy who sent a violent clown brigade to kill Nancy.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम इय्याका नअबुदु व इय्याका नस्तईन। मेरे पाकिस्तानियों, आपने कल वोट देकर अपनी हकीकी आज़ादी की बुनियाद रख दी है। मैं आप सबको इलेक्शन 2024 जीतने पर मुबारकबाद देता हूं। मुझे आप सब पर पूरा भरोसा था कि आप वोट देने निकलेंगे। आपने मेरे भरोसे का मान रखा और आपके मैसिव टर्नआउट ने सबको हैरान कर दिया है। लंदन प्लान फेल हो चुका है आपके वोट की वजह से। नवाज शरीफ एक कम ज़र्फ इंसान है जिसने ऑफिशियल नताइज के मुताबिक 30 सीट्स पीछे होते हुए भी विक्ट्री स्पीच कर दी है। कोई पाकिस्तानी उसे नहीं मानेगा और इंटरनेशनल मीडिया भी उस बेवकूफ़ी पर लिख रहा है। इंडिपेंडेंट जराये के मुताबिक 150 नेशनल असेंबली की सीट्स पर हम जीत रहे थे धांधली शुरू होने से पहले, और इस वक्त हम 170 से ज्यादा नेशनल असेंबली की सीट्स पर जीत रहे हैं फॉर्म 45 के डेटा के मुताबिक। मेरे पाकिस्तानियों, आप सबने तारीख रकम कर दी है। मुझे आप पर बहुत फख्र है और मैं अल्लाह का शुक्र अदा करता हूँ कि उसने हमें एक कौम बना दिया है। अब हमें ऊंची परवाज से कोई नहीं रोक सकता। आखिर में आपने घबराना नहीं है, सेलिब्रेट करें और शुक्राना के नफल पढ़ें। 2 साल के सख्त जुल्म और नाइंसाफियों के बावजूद हमने 2024 इलेक्शंस 2/3 अक्सरियत से जीत लिया है। सबने आपके वोट की ताकत देखी है। अब वोट की हिफाजत करने की सलाहियत भी दिखाएं। पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद।
Look at these jokers. No, I'm serious. Look at these fucking shit birds. We can't let them back in, smearing shit on the walls of democracy. Now, hey, I know I'm old as fuck. I get it, America. I'm tired. I'm slowing down. I make Al Pacino look like Timothy fucking Chalamet. I know I wasn't your first choice in 2020. Hell, I wasn't my first choice. You think I like getting a syringe of B12 plunged in my ass every morning just to stay alert enough to run this country? Shit, no. But these are the cards we're dealt, Jack. I'm going to be so hopped up on goofballs and cocaine. I'm going to make Don Jr. look normal. Reality is I can't step down and let who? Kamala run? Have you seen her as Veep? Get the fuck out of here. My priorities in 2024. Number one is I'm not the guy who sent a violent clown brigade to kill Nancy.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम इय्याका नअबुदु व इय्याका नस्तईन। मेरे पाकिस्तानियों, आपने कल वोट देकर अपनी हकीकी आज़ादी की बुनियाद रख दी है। मैं आप सबको इलेक्शन 2024 जीतने पर मुबारकबाद देता हूं। मुझे आप सब पर पूरा
Hello again, everyone. As we gear towards our second panel on navigating AI's impact on elections, I wanted to take 2 minutes to share something very exciting we at SFLC.in have been working on. For the past 14 years, we have been engaged in public advocacy and research, aligning our long-standing work on free and open source software and decentralization of tech power. The idea has always been that if we do not control our technology, then the technology will control us. Free and open has always been part of SFLC.in's core beliefs and ideas. We have been doing extensive work to ensure that emerging technologies such as AI are safe and reliable.
As part of the recent work that we have been doing, there has been an EU AI research paper that has been mapping the AI developments and deployments. So back in 2022, our understanding that was AI was still in development and staggered. However, we were surprised when the report was underway, the extent to which AI was already being deployed across sectors in India. We carry out regular policy interventions as well for Niti Aayog papers, for example, as well as other government think tanks that produce policy initiatives on AI. We are presently also working on a white paper surrounding 4 areas that we work around, which is open source as well as artificial intelligence. Apart from this, we're constantly tracking developments on AI. So this is all to say that if you are working around open source, if you are engaged with artificial intelligence in any manner, do reach out to us. And now I would like to hand the floor to Mishi for our exciting next panel on artificial intelligence. Over to you.
Well, we're all at the mercy of the camera. शुरू कर लें? Thank you. Well, thank you everyone. For those who walked in late, welcome. And I'm going to tell you, you missed out a fantastic panel. But because we like you so much, so we have an even better panel in the lineup here. For those of you who have perhaps decided to cut technology out of your lives, or you just don't believe in it, or you've been hiding under a rock, kudos to you. That's very lucky. But if you have not been, I think everyone is now a little tired of AI will change your lives about everything. I came to India last week, and like one does, I was taking my parents to the doctor. And there is a very interesting poster which says, cure diabetes by AI. And I was very fascinated by it, how diabetes is going to be cured by AI. But then I thought, like, well, AI can do everything, even make Elon Musk make 1 or 2 good decisions once in a while. So why not cure diabetes, of course? As we know, Musk has sued OpenAI. And it's very hard to agree with a man who has never gone to therapy or who does not believe in therapy. And but sometimes we do agree. And that's why when someone is on the right side of open source, on transparency and accountability, we do agree with him. You did hear a little bit of a snippet of what we've been doing. When I started SFLC.in, the idea was, if we don't control technology, technology will control us. And that's why we believe in free as in freedom. Now, this panel is about decoding democracy, which, as we understand it today, asserted democracy or electoral democracy, saw institutions or with institutions is all up in the air because our own understanding for thousands of years is being challenged by what social media tells us, platform companies tell us, what our governments want us to believe, and what we ourselves believe. We have a stellar panel. I will say there is no AI exception to law. So please don't try to fact check what they say by asking Cloud or ChatGPT or any of those people, because they are definitely going to be not as big experts as these panelists are. I'm joined by Tarunima Prabhakar, who's a researcher working at the intersection of tech policy and global development. And then we have Dr. Charu Malhotra, who's a professor at the Indian Institute of Public Administration. She's also the coordinator of Center of E-Governance and project coordinator. Oh my God, this is the problem with stellar panelists. Their profile is so stellar that you keep reading. So I'm going to not do that. That's why. So that's what, Tarunima, I'm sorry, I ignored the rest of it completely. And Devendra Singh Jadhavan, he founded the synthetic media company. He's the Indian deep faker. That's an interesting moniker, I would say. And we have joining us, Mayank, can you hear us, see us? Can we hear you, see you? Make some noise.
Yeah, I can.
Can't hear Mayank. There won't be a tech conference where there's no tech trouble. So we can't hear Mayank. Somebody, can you please make sure that we can hear Mayank? And then Mayank is a professor at IIT Jodhpur, and he has participated in several Indian government initiatives, including my favorite, Aadhaar, Responsible AI, DigiYatra, and the formation of the TIH of computer vision. And last but not least is Prashant Sugathan, my dear friend in crime and the legal director at sflc.in. And Prashant, again, is a fantastic lawyer, but my favorite thing about Prashant is he keeps me calm, and he brings calmness to my excitement of SFLC. So we balance each other out. Hopefully there will be no balance in this panel. And we are going to now talk about what we have been thinking, discussing, or struggling with in terms of AI. What I'm going to do is take the easy route. I'm going to ask each of you to make a 2 minutes opening statement. And you can say whatever you like. The only problem is I will not let you speak beyond 2 minutes. So Tarunima, I'm going to start the clock. And why don't we hear your 2 minutes long statement, whatever you think is the right thing to talk about this topic, and then we'll just travel back to me.
Okay, I'm also putting a timer because I know you're very strict about the time. Okay, so thanks for having me here. I think it's interesting, just following on from the previous panel where some of the panelists said that, the vectors have remained the same. It's not as if we are dealing with something and we don't have existing response strategies. It's just that we know that the enforcement or even working through some of the existing ideas is very complicated, given the state platform nexus. So the space for civil society is, and how civil society responds in this space is difficult. Having said that, I think with AI, since you have asked me very specifically what has changed, in the short run, I think it is concerning in that typically when people consume media, there is a distance that that people perceive about how it represents reality, right? And every time a new media technology comes, I think it takes some time for people to realize that distance. So maybe at some point people believed that televisions of what actors were showing on television is what their personal practices were as well. Over time, we realize that just because someone endorses or smokes on screen doesn't mean that they actually smoke in person, right? And so in the long run, I expect that there will be that skepticism and that distance will grow. But in the short run, I think a lot of people will believe that, which is this year during elections, people will believe that some of this content is reflecting reality. So in the short run, I think we do need disclosures. In the short run, I think political parties should be very transparent about when they are using AI. But I don't think it is something that we should be so scared about and say that, oh, like this is going to change election in a way and it's going to change democracy. I don't think that will happen. If we see how, for example, in Indonesia, um, the AI was used to make the candidate look approachable, right? Like look very cute, look accessible, look like someone who had a militant background in the military, look approachable to Gen Z. And that's very different from some of the concerns that I think the government is very concerned about. Is like what happens when you use AI for misinformation or generating fake news about different candidates. Okay, I will hand it over.
Well, Prashant, your 2 minutes start now.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. When it comes to 2024, definitely it's going to be the biggest election when which has seen the use of technology. And that's not surprising because that's how technology has evolved. We have seen new uses over a period of time. And to repeat the cliche, we definitely often have a problem and regulation plays catch-up game when it comes to technology. But then when it comes to elections, definitely we cannot take any chances because what is at stake is democracy itself. The European Commission has recently come up with a consultation paper specifically on the issue of misinformation when it comes to elections. And incidentally, the last date for the consultation paper is today, March 7th. This discusses a lot of issues, specifically with respect to platforms, media literacy, etc. And I would say it's more nuanced than when we compare it with the mandate which the MeitY, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, has come up with, which allows to call it an advisory. I mean, I treat it to be a mandate, the way this is worded. To quote it, I mean, let me just read it out. I hope the 2 minutes not over. All intermediaries of platforms ensure that their computer resources do not permit any bias or discrimination or threaten the integrity of the electoral process, including via the use of artificial intelligence models, LLM generative AI software algorithms. That's what the advisory, the so-called advisory says. And I'm not sure how we are going to do it. But then when it comes to elections, I think the Election Commission has a major role to play with directives, and it's not just the government. I think that here the Election Commission should take the lead role. It's not easy. We don't have any quick fixes, but I wish we had somebody like maybe a TN Session to head the Election Commission at this point of time. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
See, in time, he has done it too many times with me. To you, over to you.
Prashant and my previous co-panelist. I think what we're trying to look at is system first, but I would just inverse the pyramid for all of you. Let's look at people first. And the kind of genre of people we have, excluding all of us here in this room, are all 2-minute meals kind of people. We want to consume short reels. We want to consume meals which are ready instantly. And as a result, as a professor, what I feel is that the taste for validation has diluted. We don't validate the sources, we don't validate the content, and we gulp it, digest it, and take it out depending on our convenience or our preferences or our biases. So AI has just added a layer to what was already preconceived, pre-believed, and pre-understood. And in that, now let's come to politicians. So there are two ends of this. You know, one are people and other are politicians. Irrespective of that, there's an in-between TN Session there, if I can call it as, is the Election Commission. Okay, so at the politician level also, we have two kinds, again, good and bad, both. I don't know how many percentage on each side. Let's not go there. But what I'm more worried about and actually petrified about is the liar's dividend. You know, people make claims and they say it's a fake. I can't help it. It's not me. Because there's so many similar fakes coming up. So even if you made a faux pas or you deliberately made that statement, you conveniently hide under deep fakes. You conveniently hide under those short reels which people have already consumed. So it's too late already because people out there are not validating the truth. So it's a very win-win situation. You rub my back, I rub your back, and we have governments which we are not able to manage. And let's not undermine Cambridge Analytica is now infinity times more because of AI. The face of the geopolitical politics of our world has changed because of just one little company using technology and social media analytics to twist it in favor of somebody who was not winning it.
Okay, your 2 minutes
Oh,
are
really?
over. Yes, so you.
Tell us
I just
that's
wanted to let you complete the
Okay,
sentence.
no, it's
Over
okay.
to you.
Let's go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for having me here, SFLC and a whole team. So basically, what I feel is, so technology in itself, it's neutral, right? So it depends on the person who is using it in a way. So if I'm using the technology in a good way, it will be like, so there will be for each and every technology, everything, there has two parts of the situation. So what I feel is, this technology is very new. It's an electricity moment. Currently, we just know that we can light up the room with this electricity, but there are so many use cases that are still going to be find out by different industries, different sectors. So what I feel is, earlier, suppose I want to create a technological innovation in agriculture sector, and I'm a person who is in agriculture sector. But in order to do that, I would need a person who can code, and the person who can code, he doesn't know anything about agriculture. So it was a big barrier. So now what technology is making people, so the tech is not only in the hands of the coder. So now a person who has no knowledge of code, who doesn't know anything about the AI or anything, he just talk to the ChatGPT that I want to do this thing. I don't know anything about the tech. What I want is, I want to make something in this agriculture sector. I want to do some automation. I want to do something else, anything. It could be anything. So it can just ask ChatGPT. So recently there was a case, there was it was one of the world's best AI model that was known as Baby AGI. It was created by a Japanese guy. He didn't know anything about the code or programming. He just learned everything from ChatGPT and created world's best autonomous AI agent. That was Baby AGI. So it got huge like GitHub likes on GitHub, and it went very well. So what I feel is, there will be, whether you take it as a technology, so like it's just a tech, right? So let's say, for example, car is also tech. So it takes you from place A, from A to B, but it's also a leading cause of deaths. So it doesn't mean that the car is bad. It's a tech. It depends on the person who is using it. So the person, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but can we hear Mayank, please, Mayank?
Yeah, am I audible?
That's perfect. Now you can start.
Okay, great. So I'll take my 2 minutes in talking with respect to like supporting the technology, as the previous speaker also highlighted. See, when we talk about generative AI, working in that particular domain for a few years now, what I feel is like there is a concern raised regarding its impact on the democratic process. While it has not entirely undermined the democratic process yet, but it certainly poses the risk by enabling the creation of deepfakes, facilitating the misinformation. And these technologies can actually manipulate facts and challenging the integrity of the whole institution and the discourse. Right? And to counter this risk, it is crucial that actually we develop the robust detection techniques. And the second thing is the digital literacy program that educate the public on discerning between what is real and what is AI generated content. Uh, I'm a big proponent of generative AI. And for that matter, deepfake as a technology is not bad. Intended usage, how we use it, it's good or bad. So I'll just take a quick example of this Indian movie, Sharma Ji Namkeen. So during this shoot of this particular movie, Mr. Rishi Kapoor passed away due to his illness. And the movie was completed by Mr. Paresh Rawal. If I have to be do the same thing in terms of if I'm the producer of the director, the producer of the movie, I would have actually taken the help from deepfake technology, and I would have created an entire movie in the face of using the face of Mr. Rishi Kapoor and the entire data that actually is available from his movies and the voice samples that's available. And I would have created a deepfake based entire movie. But at the same time, the movie was nice with respect to using how actually the two actors played the same role. Now coming back to the context of elections, AI role is not only encompasses the deepfake, but also the social engineering part. And the primary concern here should be how the potential for AI is to amplify the misinformation and manipulate the voters. And here, actually, I would again highlight that the usage of education, that what is real, what is not real, and providing this particular context and this power to the users is of paramount interest.
Great.
Thank you very much.
You. Thank you, everyone, for those statements. So from the fact that we're already paying the liar's dividend and it's too late already, to long run, to optimism in the long run, but pessimism in the short run. Let's just go a little deeper into how are political parties using generative AI to reach their voters. And we keep talking about the generative AI tools, making it possible to create these realistic and convincing audio, video, and images. Is it different from what we saw in the 2019 elections or the 2014 elections? And if it is on steroids, what is the problem actually we are trying to solve? I think it's a little worth stating the problem which we are right now addressing. If any of you want to address that to start with. Charu, do you want to go about that? Is this new? Is it all hype, or is it an emerging threat to the information ecosystem?
The video consumption.
Any of the impact of generative AI?
First and foremost, I'm really, really scared about video because that is what I find majority of the people consuming. Yeah, thank you.
It's on, just close it.
So anyone knew I'm soft spoken. So I am particularly like LLM, like he brought out, it's writing codes for you, and like we already know about other aspects like SQL injection, SQL poisoning, DNS poisoning, all because of LLM. I'm not going there. I'm actually only worried about the new currency of elections is video. And with all the reels and TikToks, we've become a video democracy. In this, it's very tough to, as I said, unravel the truth from the concoction behind it. But I also feel on the same hand that regulation in our country has now suddenly, not because I'm from government, has become very agile. If some of you would already know that we are about to bring in AI mission by this week. I mean, this week means in March, next week, sorry, which is going to be an umbrella program where not just the advisory in court is going to be one part, but we're going to have a holistic approach of inclusiveness coming out from MIT to ensure that AI in election is going to be a very fair process. So how would that be implemented is, well, I agree, is the real tough task to walk the talk. But the point here is that consumers themselves, the user themselves, are the ones that need to be sensitized, irrespective of the kind of AI tool we are using to propagate ourselves. In this case, politicians.
Tarunima, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking at what like level of abstraction to intervene. So I'll start at the higher level, which is that I think unlike maybe some of my co-panelists, I think technology is not neutral. And specifically when we talk about media and new media tech, what it does, it creates room for people to negotiate who creates evidence, right? We don't stop becoming, we always still reason in cause and effects. It's just that what counts as the evidence on which we build that cause and effect relationship changes. And new media technology creates space for different kinds of evidence, and therefore it creates opportunity for power to move. And when that power moves is where I think there's a lot of concern, because then we become concerned about who is generating, like who's behind the systems that generate that evidence, who's wielding it. I think those questions are sort of classical questions, and we should observe them with a lot of caution and observe them in a broader conversation beyond just specifically AI and Gen AI. So that's my high level question. I think at a very specific level, you said, how are people using AI in campaigning? I mentioned it in my opening remarks. The bit that concerns me most is the use of AI in directed attacks. So whether it is towards women journalists, when it's something that's very focused, right? I think a lot of what we then speak about in terms of debunking, etc., becomes a lot harder. So when political candidates use AI to spread their content like far and wide, we will have a public conversation about it. But when it becomes very directed, I think the harm is very directed, and it's very difficult to sort of respond and protect the person who's been harmed. So that's the bit about AI in elections that actually, or even just generally Gen AI in public life, that concerns me more.
So I want to ask the panelists a little bit more about what are political parties actually doing? Why is it such a big problem? They were making videos already. What is the problem if an Indonesian president has an avatar which looks much more cuddly? And what is the problem if tomorrow the leader of the opposition in India or the prime minister, they can't speak all our languages? And if there is a video which speaks and addresses the entire country, why is that a problem? I think that's a fantastic way to use it. So before we only talk about deep fakes, etc., what are these various ways? Whether, Tarunima, your concern about this directed one is a problem or not, but there are other ways also which is being used. Can we talk a little bit more about any of you want to take? Mayank, you want to jump in? Devendra, you want to jump in?
So
I'll
recently,
take, okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, Mayank, go ahead, and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to actually add here. See, as I said, like generative AI is not bad. Means you already talked about the language translation example, right? Means politicians can right now over using the audio deepfakes can now create their message in different languages, not necessarily focused to only one geographic language challenges. Those are no more the challenge. But at the same time, if you think from the voters' perspective, the voters with disabilities, Gen AI can create the accessible content for them with respect to the audios, video formats for the visual impaired who can actually now cast their vote. It can be actually used for even at the same time, means it can be used for fact checking and misinformation detection part. And the third, actually, I also see that the voter education and engagement is another very fantastic application of Gen AI, and we should not discard that that just because Gen AI has a negative side, we should not actually not look at the good side of Gen AI in elections. As I said, like voter engagement is a huge positive side of impact. It can have both side, positive and negative, but the way I see is it can have a huge positive impact with respect to utilizing Gen AI technology.
Can you give us examples of this voter engagement using generative AI?
Yeah, so again, means see, if I have to give a very specialized talk to students, right? So I can actually give a talk to create a script and then give a talk to students only, right? When my talk is only tailored for them. At the same time, if I want to talk to people in rural country, I can have a very tailored. So it's like creating a very personalized Gen AI based discussions that actually one can have. Means Prime Minister Modi can potentially, using Gen AI, can actually talk one-on-one with every person in India. And it can be very personalized experience that people can actually can have. And for that matter, this could be available to each and every politician, each and every candidates in the election process. And that would actually give a much more connected feel of what Gen AI can actually do.
Devin?
so yeah, there are both negative and positive sides of it. So it depends on the application. So there are some very good applications, as the Meng said, language translation. It's basically it's removing the barrier of language. So if I want to speak to anyone, I can speak in their own language. The second thing that what politicians and political parties are using currently AI in. So recently we have been getting a lot of requests from different political parties and PR agencies, political consultants. Some of them were like to enhance the existing image of their leader, and the ones like the dangers, which could be dangerous and unethical requests, were like creating a clone of their opponent leaders, making him say something that he has never said. These are real. These are some of the issues that they are trying to imply on it. But what I want to say is there are some other good use cases of it as well. There should be regulation on it. So what they are using. So one thing is personalized messaging at scale. So what happens is if a leader, generally what political parties are doing, they are like switching the traditional ways of campaigns and they are like putting AI and they are testing. So basically, just because AI has gotten a hype, there are some parties that are using AI in any form. They just want to try it out, whether you want to create an AI generated video. So they are trying different things, everything. So one is the personalized messaging. The second one is real-time conversational agent. So suppose currently I'm sitting in my small town, Pushkar, and the people who create schemes, they are sitting in a
capital or something, but they don't know the real issues. It's not possible to address the real issue of the each voter. So how AI can help it? So there are real-time conversational agents. So like you can send millions of calls to each and every voter. It will be in real time. It will talk to the voter. It will ask few data points like your name, your age, and your geographical location. And based on that, if there are schemes, if you are a youth, if there are schemes related to the youth, it will explain. So it can be in the voice of leader, but there should be so currently we are also building some kind of thing, but it will be an AI generated watermark, and the voice agent will say that I'm an AI avatar. But what I want to say that it will ask, it will be a two-way communication. It's not IVR where you have to press some buttons like आप ये दबाएंगे तो ये होगा. So it is real time. उसके बाद they can explain the schemes. The second most important thing कि it can ask the user कि voter से पूछ के कि what are your real issues, current local issues क्या हैं आपके. The second thing is what are your suggestions to the government that you want to, if you have any issues with the political party, and all this data can be recorded and transcribed, and then it can be filtered out based on the particular question. So
and you're getting political parties, requests from political parties to
not
make
from India
such
also, but
systems?
overseas as well.
Okay.
Because they want to know. So that data, they can make schemes. So if they get this kind of data from each and every person, they can create schemes according to that. So suppose, so this is one good part of it. And there are personalized, they're using personalized messaging. Personalized messaging in the sense like you'll get a personalized message from leader and he'll be saying your name. And so it gives a personalized connection. So it's not just politics. Each and every company is using personalization in their field. So suppose if somebody is, recently Ankur Warikoo, like anybody who bought his book, he got a personalized message from Ankur Warikoo. There was a movie from Ayushmann Khurrana. Anybody who bought his ticket, he got a personalized message. So everybody is going into personalized thing. So these are few things, AI generated videos they are using. They are also, there are some unethical things that they are also doing that, but there are good things also. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think we've at least identified that language is a major beneficiary here. There are going to be tailored messaging. Somebody, if they know enough about you, which they already do, you can receive all those messages. In 2012, the preparation for the 2014 elections, at least one of the parties was collecting a lot of phone numbers. You had to send them a text, and that's SMS, which is what it was. Thereafter, 2016 UP elections were WhatsApp messages, which is how we did it. Now it's on steroids. Now, we've talked about that they're using videos, which is a great thing. I would personally like to see a cuddly avatar of every political leader. But does that actually change the way I vote? I do not know. Indonesia said that it was the Gen Z. I'm very old, so obviously I'm not the right target audience. But it says that video is what bothers. Charu, Tarunima has also talked about a bunch of stuff here. I want to understand this deep fakes thing, which we've been talking about. It's possible to create real and convincing audio, video images. We saw what President Biden was saying here, or Imran Khan was saying here. Are we seeing already uses of this? Did we see that already in some of the state elections in India? And if it is already happening here, and that's our problem because the cost of creation are so low and the results are stunning, then what is it that we are doing? Or because elections are 3 months later, we're already doomed, we can wrap up this panel and go home. Prashant, you want to go?
I mean, we have seen this happening. In fact, even in Tamil Nadu, where videos were made of Jayalalitha, of Karunanidhi, etc. So it was like videos where people could relate to. So the problem here is not of just videos being made. Question is whether people know, a person who is seeing this video, whether he or she knows that is this not real, it's created by AI. That's where labeling comes in. That's where there should be transparency. I mean, I don't think there can be a debate about need for transparency now that we have the electoral bonds judgment. So definitely, I think anything for that matter, there should be transparency to it. That is, even when it comes to AI, deepfakes, etc. So whether people are using it, whether political parties are using it, I don't think there is any debate for that now. Everybody is using it. At which scale, that's also going up. But then definitely there needs to be some regulation, some control. I think that's where EC should take a stance, where the Election Commission should do something about it. Because unless we have the umpire stepping in at this stage, you said, okay, whether it's too late. It's not too late. This is where we need to do it. If the elections are going to be notified, if they don't do it now, then I think that's a lost bet.
Tarunima?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned a couple of instances. Again, accessibility 2019, we'd seen the Delhi Manoj Tiwari? No, Manoj Tiwari, right? Manoj Tiwari, right. So that was the earliest one. Very convincing videos, him saying the same message in 3 languages, of which we are certain he didn't speak at least one. So you mentioned the deceased politicians. Also now that when the candidates were announced, sorry, I mean, there are good use cases, but also the bad ones. One of the MLAs from Barabanki was caught in a video. I don't know if you've all followed that, right? So, which he then has claimed is a deep fake. I still don't quite know what's happening there, but I expect that we will start seeing AI being leveraged again for slander of opposition and possibly like inflating your own profile.
So, yeah, please. Yes.
There are good uses of technology also. I mean, suddenly we have moved towards the trajectory of videos. I'm sorry for that. Apart from what my panelists said, if you would have noticed, even AI CCTV monitoring of tampering with EVMs has been noticed only because we had those CCTVs, capturing that certain ballot papers were being tampered with. And yes, precisely. So, and second is that analytics is being used quite a lot in terms of mapping the community preferences. My only concern when it comes to all this is that there is a front end and there's a back end. Okay. So in a front end, we are worried about how the user is interacting, where we get conversations, multilingual interactions. But at the back end, what is happening is a lot of analysis, a lot of community, you kind of profiling, pattern recognition, you constantly profiling and building up communities the way they do, what they do, and how they do. My only concern as as somebody from technical background is data vulnerability. I mean, where you have data lying across the country in a fragmented manner in various databases, kisko protect karenge hum log? And also because the moment we change geographies, we change controls, we change politics. So what applies here at the center is not applying to the, the fragmented components. So that's another concern. So wherever data is, we have to protect it. We have to sensitize people about what you just mentioned. I mean, why can't my classrooms right now have a session of how to identify a deepfake? वो आंखें नहीं चल रही वीडियो में is a good thing. Why wait for watermark advisory to come? Why can't my youth of today look into videos and identify, well, this is generated by AI and this is original? It just takes few minutes. We have already reached a stage where we can look up and pick up a product and say, इसमें spelling mistake है, ये गलत है. This is not Colgate, this is written with K, so it's not Colgate with C, it's a fake product. So why can't my students be taught that skill, not just analytical or not just technical, but
Charu,
also the simple social skill?
But Charu, I'm going to push you back here. The
Yeah.
results of using an AI, if I'm a bad actor, are so stunning that that Colgate or K is no longer my problem. It will look so genuine and real to me that the tools which we were using earlier to train, and I wish Boom and Pratik and everyone could talk about it. What worked earlier, those things are failing us now because the tools are fantastic. So what do we do now when things are so believable, results are so stunning, and then we know that the bad actors can use legitimate tools but create something which will be a deep fake? Then what is it we do?
That's what I'm saying. The science of validation has disappeared.
Tarunima?
Okay, so I'm going to make a plug for this project that the Misinformation Combat Alliance is running. And I will make the plug, but also I'll explain why I think it's a good approach. So I agree with you that it is increasingly hard for you to just by your naked eye detect manipulations in video. Mayank would vouch to that as well. And then you get to audio, which is extremely difficult because there are no visual cues. And so those manipulations are very, very difficult for humans to detect. So clearly we need some technology, and that's where the kind of tech that Mayank is building is helpful. But I also think at the same time you need the traditional journalistic skills where someone picks up a phone and calls the person and says, did this actually happen? So the MCA, which is the Misinformation Combat Alliance, an organization of 15 fact-checking groups, Booms in the Room. Pampush back there is the head of the project that's focusing on responding to deepfakes. And the idea is to bring forensic experts and journalists to work together and respond to content, because sometimes traditional journalism works, and sometimes you need the tech. That's my plug. Sorry, but that's one solution.
Mayank, Tarunima has put you on the spot. So let's.
Yeah. Right. So I think see, there are two things. I agree that means we should teach at least the basic skills that means just look at the video or look at the audio, like hear the audio, look at the image, look at the video, and figure out like what are the cues for to say that this is real, this is not real. But as we actually so this was true, like let's say a year ago, 1.5 years ago, we could actually look at. But since we are going into the more advanced and advanced algorithms, particularly with the diffusion networks coming in a very big way, the images, that the content that we generate, they are so real, like almost like real like. You have to combat using data-driven technique. See, what when we talk about creating deepfakes, or for that matter, generative AI, right, synthetic media, they are all data-driven techniques. We have given a huge amount of training data, like millions and billions of samples, to generate that, to understand that particular feature space or knowledge space. And using that feature space and knowledge space, we have actually now created some tools, right? So that creates deepfakes, synthetic media, and so on and so forth. Now we can use the same route and actually understand what is the distribution these samples are being created using these tools, and how they are different with respect to the real content. Means I always take this example, and I have also like shared sometimes with earlier with Tarunima and others, that see, when I'm clicking a photograph, the camera has certain noise which actually is embedded in my image. This noise is going to be very, very different than the noise that a generative AI model would actually create. Can we learn this? At the end of the day, this is a pattern matching problem then. Can we learn this distinction? And that's what we have been doing. This is what Tarunima was highlighting. And this is the concept we are actually utilizing in our deepfake detection tool, where actually we could differentiate both in audio samples as well as in video samples that this is deepfake or this is real. And that's what we are trying to highlight. And we have to evolve, right? Just like a Tom and Jerry game. We have to keep on evolving. We have to keep on understanding the distribution for the next day and for the next day and for the next day. We can't sit idle in the generative AI world.
Okay, so the alliances of fact checkers are doing something. We've talked a little bit about, can you tell us what the voters should be doing here? Because it seems like if all the political parties are going to use this and one person is going to claim something else, what should we do? And what you are talking is, because you all are much more educated, sophisticated people. I, as a voter, have no idea. I'm the 2 minutes person. I love reels. I love whatever is happening. What should I do? Right now, what should I be doing? How should I be thinking about this use of generative AI? What are the tools we are working on, or what is being offered to me as a voter?
This goes beyond technology. It's a social layer. It's economics. It's ethics. It's community binding. It's becoming serious about your rights and responsibilities.
Yeah, but the election is in May.
Don't catch me on the wrong foot. But what I'm saying is it's a very deep-rooted cancer. And even if election is in the May, what is important is a lot of community responses have to come up. A lot of sensitization has to happen. A lot of fact checking, like she said, has to happen from the organic source. And maybe this advisory, which I'm waiting for, is not an advisory. The AI mission I'm waiting for has one very important thing. I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I'm sure everybody knows about those kittens, is the watermark effect, that everything that comes out through AI will have, number one, a tool. Government of India has already talked about it in Davos WEF forum, that we are going to insist on certain tools before anybody loads anything on their platforms. They should go through those tools. And second is that whatever is being uploaded should have a watermark. Okay, but yes, what should public do is be serious about their rights.
Actually, I wasn't being flippant there or trying to put you on spot. I think I take the point seriously about engaging with civil society, academics, and experts. And I also take the point very seriously about the bandwidth for a voter is limited.
Yes.
There's so much I can do. I have to go make a living. I also have to do, and TV shows me something, and then social media shows me something. But can we now, we'll go to this is a very well-informed room, so they all know whether advisory legally binding or not, what it is, what the details are. I can see a lot of friends who've already talked about it, so we'll get to that. But Prashant, can you talk us through a little bit of this tech accord we heard in Munich Security Conference? The companies have come together. They are doing something. EU is doing something. The US is pretending to do something. And but can you talk about what exactly the companies are doing, and also give us this thing about, because free speech is very important when we sit in the United States, but when we sit in India, the only thing important is how they all claim that their hands are tied, hostage taking laws, as they call it. But what are the companies doing? Charu did touch upon watermarking, this advanced authenticity through provenance or watermarking. If you talk about that, and various efforts from the companies, and then we will talk about this great advisory, because I think that does solve a lot of problems. Can you talk about those?
Yeah. See, when it comes to companies, I think Rishi talked about the gorilla in the room. It's true. So that is one major player, and who definitely, I mean, a lot of when it comes to AI generated media, the extent of reach, whether people, earlier I talked about labeling, all that depends a lot on these platforms. So the earlier consultation that I mentioned about EU, the major, I would say, the focus of those, the document as such, the consultation document as such, was mostly on what these platforms can do. It talked mostly about the bigger platforms, the large online platforms, and the large online search engines. So these were the two, let's say, intermediaries which the EU consultation paper was focusing on. And it talked about a lot of issues, one specifically on labeling, and then again on things like media literacy, where platforms, various stakeholders, civil society, let's say, and organizations which work on busting fake news, all these can come together. So it's, again, when it comes to intermediaries again, although there have been these discussions happening in various parts of the world, there clearly is a north-south divide. So are they really agreeing to what is happening? And see, when something happens in the US, definitely it's a bigger issue.
You mean Delhi and Kerala, or?
Not Delhi and Kerala.
Global South, global.
Global South and Global North, for sure. Yeah. Let's say the steps that they took when something happened in the US elections, are they taking the same kind of efforts when it comes to the India, when it comes to global, other countries also in the Global South? That definitely is an issue. So it has to be the same yardstick across regions. You cannot change your stance when it comes to Global South. It has to be the same yardstick. When whatever applies to the US, whatever applies to the North, should definitely apply to South also. So that is something that intermediaries have to go by. What they are agreeing to, what they are talking about when it comes to ground reality.
So Prashant has aspirational ideas. We don't have First Amendment here. Why should they actually be working on the same grounds here? It's different anyway. But anyway, I'm really trying to push you is that it's all fine if we are in 2010 and 2011 to say they should have the same standards. We don't have the same standards. Employees of platform companies get arrested if they don't comply with certain things. That is why they call it hostage taking laws. And why is Elon Musk not right to say, well, it's the law that sent it to us, I'm just going to do it, because otherwise you create all these problems for me. So why are we expecting platforms and not expecting our governments to have those standards? Because how, if I am a platform, how do I operate in Global South on same footing as I operate in the United States? You are on the spot.
Okay. Definitely. I mean, if you look at the advisory again.
Yeah,
So-
for those of you who don't know, this is an advisory came on March 1st, 2024. It is going to solve all your problems, but it is a non-binding something. It's called due diligence by intermediaries, platforms under the IT Act and IT intermediary guidelines and digital media ethics rule. Rolls off the tongue so easily. But it is an important advisory precisely for this. We'll talk about it in detail, but yeah, Prashant, go ahead.
Yeah. So again, whether Twitter, whether once they get a directive from the government, a direction from the government, take down content. To be honest, I don't think they have much of a say in it. So maybe Elon Musk wants to kind of counter it, but they had gone to court, and even unfortunately, even the Karnataka High Court did not agree with them. So as of now, once they get a direction from the government, they will have to comply with it. So that's a different issue. But I mean, I don't want to get into it. But then the question is, again, the kind of standards that the governments also need to go by. And that is where the question is like, again, see, when we are asking the intermediaries to follow the same standards here, the kind of, when you look at the intermediary guidelines, rules, and again, the advisories, it is something where the governments have like gone to an extent where we have deviated from the main act. The IT Act does not provide for all this. So now in the we're using the term due diligence. You're asking the intermediaries to do whatever the government wants. That definitely is a problem, and I don't think anybody has a solution if that's the way subordinate legislation is being drafted.
Tarunima, you want to weigh in?
No, I think Prashant covered it. So there are two aspects of it. One is that, of course, the laws are different, and we're stuck in this moment where global platforms are like, we're global, we adhere to UN standards, etc. I mean, let the social media in its infancy was about connecting everyone, right? And now I think we're like in our 20s of social media, and so I think a little bit more sober about what actually happens in reality. So I think the yeah, in part, it's what we are saying, that the rules are different in different countries and why should they not adhere? But then the other reality also is that when they claim to adhere to certain principles across different countries, and then they do a worse job in the global south than in the global north. The case being languages in detecting instances of abuse or detecting even violations of their own principles or the community standards in certain countries. So it's both.
Well, you want to weigh in?
No, I totally agree because there are two takes to the same problem. One is why create kind of barriers and filters for big tech platforms. The second is when we go to various parts of the country, like I travel a lot, it's within the country also as a government officer. So the first thing that those people in Chaurahas or Chopals ask me, what is government doing about us? So there is a clear, difference between expectations and what we are doing. So when government does, why it is doing it, when government says you should do something yourself and something we should do ourselves, then there is a problem, like government is becoming too hegemonic in ways more than one. My only concern is that we should go beyond the whole problem. Let's look at the whole thing as a systems perspective. It's not just AI I'm worried about. It's also my EVMs I'm worried about. It's also databases I'm worried about. It is also my CCTVs I'm worried about. It's also, my phishing attacks on my election commissioners I'm worried about. So technology as a whole has totally rattled the convenient apple cart. And the apples are falling down and we're letting them fall and stink and become a stew somewhere.
Well, I like her analogies very much. So tasty they are, but I think the important point you do make is our expectations as well. And tech, not just about this. Mayank, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, so there are two things. First of all, as we are talking about this guideline that has been given, and it looks like that. Yes, I agree. That means everything will be solved using watermarking. By the way, in my PhD, I worked on watermarking, and after that, I stopped working on it because
you got the PhD.
Yeah, I don't want to complete the sentence. Means I wrote about 25, 30 odd papers, and then I stopped. I thought, okay, enough. Um, see, when we talk about the regulations, they should be dynamic to adapt that's this fast evolving this nature of generative AI. We can't actually create a guideline or a rule or regulation using watermarking or using provenance. And by the way, provenance in US, many actually research projects have shown that you can't go beyond a certain number, and that number is about 65%, right? And then it cannot solve all those things that we're talking about. And it has to actually, the regulations has to actually talk about much more wider range of stakeholders. Means the tech folks actually have to weigh in. They have to come in. I really like some of the large companies which are trying to do something in responsible AI domain. They try to restrict the generation at the source level. But if I'm a bad actor, I would not use those platforms. I would actually go to open source world and create something from the open source world, and not put any watermark, not give you any provenance, and then you cannot do anything, right? So this has to be, when the regulation has to know how to actually be comprehensive, effective, and how actually means, and then the education. I'll go back to being a professor. I'll go back to the education part, like educate the janta, educate the people of this country that, okay, don't trust everything that you see on the social media platform. Educate the press that, okay, don't trust everything that you see. You have to do other fact checking. And this is where the MCA comes in. This is where the fact checkers comes in. That if the content is really meaningful, then actually go and publish. Otherwise, don't publish. Be careful. And that has to be a multifaceted approach. Means we can't actually just rely only on putting all the blame on the tech companies. The civil society, the other stakeholders and actors have to come together to solve this major problem. Means just putting watermarking is not going to solve the problem.
This is great. I think I'm going to go back to Tarunima's long-term optimism, short-term pessimism. Again, sorry, stealing it. But it is excellent, because the thing is, all of these discussions are great. We have all these, civil society should do it, we should educate. But if I'm being told, oh, don't believe mainstream media, go to social media. Now, don't believe social media, where do I go actually? But Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, I think, did the right thing. There's an advisory. What is the problem here? Where everybody has been creating so much fuss about it. This is totally what you all have been talking about. He says that label it. What is the problem? If somebody is using generative AI, then all the platform companies are supposed to ensure that use of intelligence models, LLM, generative AI, software algorithms, etc., whatever you are using it, they should not permit any bias or discrimination or threaten the integrity of the electoral process, including via the use of artificial models. They've also said, if using under testing, unreliable artificial intelligence, which for me is everything. But I asked ChatGPT about summarize the New York Times versus OpenAI. I'm, of course, the lawyer nerd that I wanted to say. It said there is no such lawsuit. Obviously, right? So, but anyway, going back to the advisory, it says use of under testing unreliable artificial intelligence models, and its availability to the users on Indian internet must be done so with explicit permission of the government of India, and be deployed only after appropriately labeling the possible and inherent fallibility or unreliability of the output generated. What is the problem? You all have said, label it. This is wrong. It might be wrong, or it is unreliable. Don't rely on this output, and it is synthetic. Further, there has to be a further consent pop-up mechanism may be used to explicitly inform the users about the possible and inherent fallibility or unreliability of the output generated. That's how you're being informed. What is your problem? Why have you made his life so difficult? He's right. And this is what you all have suggested.
No, he's right. I'm not saying that he's not right. What the problem here is that we are only relying on, let's say, the big companies who have this technology, which can generate content, and there you can actually put more controls. But in the open source world, you can't restrict the open source world to say, unless until you put the watermark, unless until you label it, you can't put it on the internet. Means this is simply not possible. I'll take an analogous example of pornography. MIT has been blocking pornographic websites since many years. Have you actually stopped pornographic websites in India? Whether all the pornographic websites are closed in India?
Are they, I mean, this is a serious question. We do, SFLC does content takedown. Are pornographic websites not available in India?
The content is available, the sites are not.
It is available, right? And today, if you go on the dark web, you can pay $20, $30, and you can get your deepfake without any watermark, without any traces. So what are you actually controlling with this? See, as I said, this has to be a much more thought process. Means a good amount of thought process needs to go in, and we have to actually look at a multifaceted approach in this, not actually just saying that label it and the problem goes away.
So
This may be just one way of doing it. This may be one way, maybe the simplest way, or maybe the low-hanging fruit way of approaching this. But this is not the only way. This will not solve the problem. The problem still is going to be there.
Great. So this is not the only way. It's not comprehensive. Prashant?
See, nobody says that AI does not have to be regulated. You can have regulation. That's what countries across the world, organizations are trying to do. I mean, for example, the European Commission, etc. But the problem here is when you have, let's say, knee-jerk reactions to something, and then look at this. What has been talked about is when if you look at one is like about getting permissions for all, let's say, LLMs. How exactly are you going to ensure this? What happens? So once, for example, you have maybe ChatGPT or Gemini, you get a permissions. How do you really ensure that what happens, let's say maybe 1 week down the line, is not in tune with what the government wants? And AI learns over a period of time. There are things which happen over a period. You can't really control. You can't just say, okay, I have certified it now. 1 week later, it will also behave the same way. How do you ensure that? Is that the way to come out with a regulation for that matter? You had I mean, everybody knows what happened and what's the reason for this advice now. But that cannot be the, let's say, the rationale for any government to come out with a regulation. That has to be well thought of. That's where, I mean, I mentioned the EU consultation. I mean, that what they're doing is a well thought out process, which is based on the DSA. And then they are going up through a consultation process, trying to involve the industry, the civil society, how they can go ahead with doing it.
But in December, when those deepfake problem of the film star happened, then they also came up with an advisory on deepfake. When they do something, you have a problem, and they don't do something, you have a problem.
Actually, पहले कहते हैं agile बन जाओ, जब agile बन जाते हैं तो आप consultation नहीं कर रहे. I mean,
no, it's not the question. No, it's not the question.
It's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's a very, very planned, sensitive. You know, it's like reacting to a problem, and there's a fire. We've got a fire control mechanism.
Fine, a fire control mechanism, but then again, the question of how much the government can do.
That's another thing. The process has started, Prashant, and we need more literate electorate in the process. We need, you know, a very good hand-holding between public, private, startups, academia, students to come together. Till there is no legislation, we are grappling in the dark. Thankfully, there is something. Thankfully, we're discussing it. And thankfully, we have Prashant here.
No, the issue here is, yes, you have an advisory, you have a regulation, but then you can't have clarifications by the ministry. That's not how the law works. Unfortunately, I'm a lawyer, but that's not how the law works. You need to have a proper, a parental legislation, a secondary legislation, and based on that, maybe government comes up with orders. But you can't have some advisory, then a clarification by the ministry from his minister from his personal account. I mean, I'm sorry that. I mean, how will a startup be sure about what's the regulation going to be? How will anybody who is going to invest in? You have all the investment by the big companies, big investors in AI. So if this is how you're going to regulate it,
I celebrated the death of red tapeism when all this happened. Seriously?
We celebrated the death of license Raj. We have the license Raj coming back. I'm not sure about it.
All right. On this uplifting note, bring us some questions. Here, Shashank. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Shashank. I work at the National University, Delhi. question to Prashant. We've spoken about various stakeholders, right? Government, civil society, fact checkers. And we kind of sort of mentioned the courts, right? Because if you think about it, governments, let's say political parties have incentive to use fake content. Platforms, as Mishi pointed out, have their own incentives, right, to sort of get eyeballs and make money. But maybe there's one stakeholder that is incentivized to protect rights, right, and to sort of protect against egregious overreaching government sort of action. Talking about the Karnataka High Court judgment, Elon Musk has to follow the law in India, Twitter has to follow the law in India, but why couldn't the courts sort of take the right route and say that 69A is sort of unconstitutional or beyond sort of constitutional remit? So I mean, it's a comment and a question. Like, I think that courts are not questioned enough. Maybe they don't have capacity, and we should talk about that as well. But they are the stakeholder that is clearly incentivized to work for the people. So yeah, I just want
Shashank, you remember he's still in the bar, not in the bench.
if anybody else actually wanted to ask this question to the first panel, but
Yeah. Definitely. No doubt that courts, at least when it comes to matters like this, courts are the final arbiter who decides whether something is unconstitutional or not. And till now, if you look at even Shreya Singhal for that matter, the reason why 69 is the rules and the provision was not struck down was courts thought that there was a proper mechanism being followed, that the orders are being given to the concerned party. I mean, but that's not how it works now, unfortunately. We are not even following that. Again, when it comes to Twitter judgment, now I think it has gone to the appeal stage now. Let's see what happens. I mean, let's not be, let's say, disillusioned by one judgment. Let's hope the better sense will prevail.
Well, SFLC will stop existing if we were not optimistic. Courts will get there. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tejasvi and I work with the Internet Freedom Foundation. I'd like to hear from Mayank and Tarunima. Devendra, you mentioned tailored messaging and personalized messaging and how that's a positive use case. But there's a flip side to it, and that's targeted deployment at the micro level. And Tarunima, you'd mentioned how targeted deployment at women journalists is something that concerns you, right? So, and while deployment at scale and at the micro level both may have the same consequences, they both may be able to influence voter perceptions and voter beliefs. Deployment at the micro level that's targeted may be more difficult to identify and then tackle. So what are some solutions, both in the long term and the short term, to tackle such micro-targeting of deceptive media?
Mayank, you want to start, and Tarunima and Devendra?
Yeah, see, it's not that means that while there is a deepfake research, there is a deepfake detection research also, right? So fortunately for all of us, there has been a good progress in that domain, where now it is, at least to the large extent, we can detect if some content is deepfake or not. But this technology has to actually reach to masses. This technology still has to actually reach to more and more, like 1.428 billion population or 1.5 billion population. At the same time, means we are trying to ensure that this technology reaches to the fact checkers, this technology reaches to the media agencies, so that at least when they see and when they put the media in the open, at least they can get it. And that's where, like, many of us, in fact, many of the companies are actually trying to come up with deepfake detection. In fact, I was reading that McAfee is also coming up with a deepfake detection tool. We have also, from IIT Jodhpur, we have also actually launched our tool, which is right now being used in many applications. So it's not that the word is going for a toss because there are deepfakes. There are actually some good actors who are trying to come up with some technological solution for this particular problem statement.
Can I ask a clarification on your question? Is your question about personalization as a concept, or is it about targeting in, like, as an attack? So where's your question coming? Right, and then the personalization you're saying is that the messages are being personalized to... Okay, maybe Devendra can come in. I want to understand the question a little better. So maybe they have understood in a way I have not. But yeah.
So I totally agree with you. Let's say let's take for personalized messaging in general. So there are two scenarios. I got a message. So I'm affiliated to a particular political party. I like this leader. I've never met him. There's another leader. I don't know him. I'm not affiliated with him. But I got a message. I got a video message from that guy. And if it is not watermarked, or if I don't know if it is real or not, it it can shift my affiliation towards that guy, because see, I love that guy, but he's sending me personal messages. So watermark should be there. So this is one case. The target that attacks that you are saying, these kind of things are happening before AI as well. So that when we talk about Cambridge Analytica, our country has more micro targeting power in term. It's much higher than Cambridge Analytica to talk about this, and it's not just because of AI. It's happening before AI.
There's an excellent News Laundry coverage of 2016 UP elections, where because if I am a person who speaks bridge, but I stay in the border somewhere, and my concerns are very local there, which Mohan was saying in the earlier panel. And you send me a text message on WhatsApp, which is end-to-end encrypted, which we like, but you send me in Bridge Bhasha. You talk about what is actually bothering me, and it is coming from a political party which is particularly targeting you. They have that ability today. Your question obviously is, what if that becomes fake? How do we figure that out? I think they're trying to do something in the Munich Accord, but I'm not sure how far they would go. But we'll go to Kumar's question.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kumar Sambhav. I'm a journalist and I lead Princeton's Digital Witness Lab's work in India. My question is to Devendra first. There are two questions, Devendra. One, from private sector's perspective, where you are working with generative AI and you are also working with political parties, the proposed rules or regulations or guidelines, do you think that's tackling or they're enough to sort of deal with the bad actors in the scenario? In the absence of those, what's your framework that you decide what could be a bad actor use, bad use scenario, and what would be a good use scenario? What's your policy? How do you sort of decide? Second question to all the panels. We have looked at AI from the perspective of what the top actors would be doing, political parties would be doing. But in terms of impact on voters, we've talked about profiling, we've talked about micro-targeting. Again, what could be the worst case scenarios in that sense of what bad actors could do? But at the same time, efficiency of AI to deal with a population like Indian voters, billions of voters, and the kind of data it trains on. That data is pretty sketchy and pretty patchy across sectors. We've recently done one investigation on how the government's targeting of welfare users ended up marking alive people as dead and also taking away food from a lot of people by just mistargeting, which was done through AI. And we have seen bad actors where voters are deleted because of their affiliations or their identity. So how that kind of profiling and technology, what are the trends that you are seeing on the ground, like the real impact of AI technologies on voters, and if anybody else can also want to pitch in.
So we'll take one more question here. Yeah, first, do you want to start?
Yes, okay.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. So as you talked also, we have been working this for last from October. We have been getting a lot of requests, and we have been talking to different people. So political parties doesn't directly reach out to us. So these are the PR agencies, political consultants, and if it is a independent candidate, some of his known one will reach out to us. So we have been getting unethical requests for last 2-3 years, not just in politics, in different sectors like pornography, crypto scams. So there is a pattern of these unethical requests. So they never mail us; they just reach out to us on WhatsApp, and they ask us to go to Telegram or some platforms where they can take the conversation forward. So we got this pattern. This is a similar pattern. So whenever we recognize this kind of pattern, we just straight away say no. So currently, when we didn't have any, still we don't have that all the guidelines. So we created our own guidelines. So basically, what we wanted in terms of personalized messaging that I was saying, we are only doing this for political workers. There will be an AI generated watermark. So there, if a party who agrees on our conditions that there will be any content. So say, let's for example, conversational AI agent. So in the start, he will be saying that I am an AI generated agent. If a party agrees to that, we'll be working with them. So currently we are in talks with like 12, 13 parties, and we'll be taking only 4 projects. That's the reason. That's why we will be doing these kind of projects, which are aligning with our vision. That's why. So these are some things that we are following right now.
Devendra, why are you called the Indian deepfaker?
So actually, I used to swap faces during my childhood. No, I used to swap faces on Photoshop. Like I used to put my face on some celebrity, or used to put my friend's face on like animals or something. So one of my friends showed me a video during lockdown of black-eyed peas. That was first time then I came to know that this kind of technology, this kind of face swap technology, can be done on videos as well. And I was so fascinated by it. The next day I started learning. I didn't know anything about it. Okay, what is this deepfake actually? So I started learning. I created a channel, the Indian Deepfaker Instagram channel. I just posted these kind of what if scenarios. Okay, what I used to do is I used to like put the Hollywood scenes onto Bollywood actors, Bollywood celebrities on Hollywood on Bollywood. So it was just a fun activity. It was a side hustle, and I used to like post for last 6. I posted it for 6 months, and I got my first client. So I did before that. I didn't know that someone would pay me to create these kind of funny videos. then this happened.
Sorry, I digressed. I had been holding this question forever. So please.
Hi, myself Shubham Singh. I'm from Jamia Millia Islamia. So my question is to Mr. Devendra and Ma'am Charu, that we have seen this in 2012 and 2014 Gujarat and general elections, that the present regime has been using technologies to a large extent for campaigning, right? So even we saw this one in the post G20 summit, that our nation head and Italy's nation heads, the friendship bonds have been shared on all sorts of social media sites. Although everybody knows that that's a deep fake or that's AI generated, there have been watermarks to that. So yet people have been accepting it. Yet people have been mobilized towards the friendship, to an extent that the Italy's prime minister happens to share a photo where she uses a hashtag melody, which represents both the nation states' friendship, right? So my question is, where do you see this AI technology as a frame to mobilize large scale people in this coming elections?
I started with that. That we become a video democracy. We are believing and consuming 2 minutes videos, and the impact is very high on it. But I also find hope in some kind of a wave of awareness and activism coming up to tell people, to educate people, to sensitize people. But yes, I do remember a sarcastic comment of one of my tech friends where he mentioned he's not in the country, and he said, why don't you start working for political parties, because they pay techies more than the private companies pay techies. So it rattled me, because then I realized that yes, it's a fact that we have companies and we have big techs offering us jobs, but on the other hand, the money that comes from political parties to techies, to deep fakers, or to people who sensitize or who give ideas, money is huge. And that is where we are concerned, and I totally share your concern.
Mayank is with us? All right, no.
Yeah, I'm here.
Here, Mayank, did you also weigh in?
See, means it's going to be there. See, AI is going to be there. Generative AI is going to be there. Means we are expecting that suddenly this technology will go away. It's not going to happen. And political parties are going to use it. Who is going to use it more responsibly? That's the point. And the companies who are generating this content, they have to be more responsible. As my fellow panelists mentioned, that even before actually talking about watermarking, he has started putting watermarking. That's actually a responsible use of a technology. At least a visible, I'm hoping that's a visible watermark, so that the one can actually look at and say that, hey, you know, this is actually authentic content. But at the same time, if I am a bad actor, I can also create the same watermark in my video and actually play it. So the education part has to be there. The government, the social sectors have to actually come together to see like how actually we can combat. My main focus is on actually educate more and more. Again, I'll give an analogy with respect to the polio vaccination. We educated a lot, and we really actually cracked that problem. Similarly, we have to educate a lot about the positive and the negatives of this technology.
Well, we did have the vaccine that time. I do not know here what we have, but Abhishek.
Hi, this is Abhishek Bakshi. I wanted to add on to the question the lady asked and what Tarunama was pointing at about the flip side of personalization. Because we are specifically talking about impact on elections. The good things that are mentioned that were mentioned about using AI were reaching out to a vast audience with multilingual videos, also personalized messaging to individual sections. A major part of electoral process is and how people choose their political representatives is the communication or the presence part of it. It's a common thing when people crib about the leaders that they've elected, that vote de diya 5 saal aaye nahi, shakal nahi dikhai. And there's a common perception in India, especially in a lot of North Indian constituencies, that a non-Hindi speaking political leader would not be elected because you want to have that mass connect and all. Now with AI kind of being multilingual, a person who does not speak Bengali can still be reaching out to the audience in Bengali in a West Bengal election, or somebody who's not been doing enough for his or her constituency, be reaching out and disseminating a lot of personalized video. Oh, I know this is your local issue. I know about the road issues outside your the place, the colony that you live, would likely have an impact about somebody who's concerned about the local issues. But in reality, it wasn't the case. It's only AI generated. The multilingual part would even the game for people who would have worked on acquiring a lot of lingual skills rather than being comfortable in their own skin. So the personalization, which was mentioned as a good side, I think there's also a very dark flip side to it.
Tarunima looks
I-
skeptical.
No, I don't look skeptical. I think now I have clarity on what we meant. So I do think the question is still about personalization as a concept. I mean, I'm still trying to understand what of this is so specific to at least generative AI, because personalization was happening, as you mentioned, with Cambridge Analytica, and you know, we've had personalized ads. Like if you go to the Delhi Metro, the women's section, the women's coach, you'll always have ads that are like specific to women, right? It's where, at what degree does it become a problem, and what are the consequences of personalization? I think that's the framework I want to look at it from, rather than saying like, oh, Gen AI, sure, Gen AI enables probably more convincing messages, but the concept still is like, what degree of personalization are we comfortable with? I think the consequence of personalization is, I think, polarization. That's the that you're not getting to see what the other side or someone else, you know, what is the messaging that goes to someone else who doesn't agree with you, and then you sort of have to think about consequences, or how do you overcome polarization. So there's some interesting experiments where, you know, people are deliberately sort of pulling people of different political beliefs, getting them to work together on a project, trying to build solidarity or build sort of partnerships across disagreements. So I think then it's personalization is a very big sort of topic, independent of generative AI. Yeah.
And my take is that personalization has aggravated the problem because it has given a layer to campaigning and mass outreach, but nobody's walking the talk.
Well, that has always been true, right?
The lot of messages were always there. Now there's another layer which is personalizing those messages, but that's all. That finishes there. It does nobody.
No,
goes
but
to
I think what we're saying is, you know how they say is, गरीब की प्लेट में पुलाव आया है, लगता है कहीं चुनाव आया है. that pulao is generated by AI, but it's not that it's going to be sustained throughout. They were making empty promises. Now they have better reach to make it in 18 languages to do those empty promises. And they come to me for WhatsApp. I want encryption, so you can't even actually have an audit or look into what those messages are. And they can perpetuate that echo chamber for sure.
And nobody's asking from where they got this data. Whether they got it from dark web or they breached into my Aadhaar database or whatever. Nobody's asking. I said Aadhaar. So I said that. I mean, nobody's questioning that. Celebrating personalization, but I'm more worried about the organic source of truth.
So we're going to have a closing statement from each of you. I still want to understand what are we doing in May? If you can just tell us something, or if you don't want to touch that upon, that's totally fine. But I'd like to have a closing statement starting from Tarunima coming back. And I'm not going to time you, so it can be shorter.
Why am I on this side of the table? Okay.
Next time, different.
Yes. Okay. Well, what are we doing for May? I think watching very carefully and trying to do the best we can with, for example, the alliance of fact checkers and forensic experts. I think as individuals, let's go back to our traditional media, well, I shouldn't say traditional, but the media literacy skills that we've had over the last 4 years. Read from multiple sources. Don't believe just one. Be conservative. Don't get all your information from reels. Possibly look at the manifestos and the policies that your electoral candidates are backing or proposing. Yeah, and then I think in the longer run we have it's a different conversation. I think just for all of us in the civil society, academia, regulation space, I think the conversation should become more specific. Let's start talking about marginal risks. Are people even using open source models to generate content? Is it even profitable or needed in a country where you have humans and so many people working for very lower wages to produce content? Do we really need an open source model and deploy it and tweak it, all of that? So yeah, just make the conversation more specific in terms of marginal risks and costs.
See, I think one answer is to have better education. Make sure that the last elections, I think it was the last election, when we had this messaging of asking people to go out and vote, telling people that there's need for you to go out and vote. That is where maybe the election commission can focus this time on making people aware about these risks. What are the other risks also that you should be aware of, not just, I mean, going out and vote. There also could be, I mean, some case messages could be sent asking you even not to go out and vote. So one thing is clearly more of literacy, more of education, and yes, a lot of involvement from the intermediaries, the platforms.
Okay. Yes, I agree. Sensitize, collaborate, come together. But who has time? Who has willingness? I mean, you bring people together, they sign MOUs and they disappear. So that's the real thing. Second is, I think we should protect our swing voters. That's where we none of us could touch that. But that cluster which decides the fate on either side is we need to protect them and sensitize them rather than going bottom up throughout. Thank you.
Yeah, so what I feel is for the voter, if anything, any content, it's taking your emotions to next level, it's acting as a catalyst, then you should stop and think about it, whether to share it or not. This is the thing that voter can stop sharing.
Mayank?
Yeah. See, again, this means all the answers that I have already heard and we have already heard is essentially already encapsulating what can be done and what can't be. And then I'll also stress on the public education part with respect to deepfake, and that's probably going to be the fastest way. And if I have to put my vote on the what is the fastest methodology to at least address the deepfake problem, like at least if I have to tell my parents that don't trust everything which is coming on the social media or on the WhatsApp messages, is to actually educate them and tell them that, hey, you have to also look at more objectively what you are seeing, whether it is true or not. Because I've been telling my parents for the many messages that they get, and they come and ask me whether it is real or not. And while at home, I tell them, but then when you actually extrapolate this for a large population, this has to be public awareness campaigns have to be and should be actually planned in a much bigger way by the agencies that okay this is what the implications are and this is how what you can do probably in those scenarios, because as everyone else said, that means where is the time, and it's just like around the corner, the elections around the corner. We may not be ready with respect to technology. We may have some solutions, watermarking, detection, something, but then are we really ready with that scale? So public awareness is probably one of my biggest bet.
Well, thank you very much. We perhaps gave you more questions than answers, but also a lot of important issues all of the panelists did touch upon. Navigating this impact would not be easy. However, there is still time. We're only in March, and a lot can be done. The choices all around the world are not great. Or perhaps they will become better, and they will try to tell us more interesting and optimistic things. We will be aware, we will work hard. I am very optimistic because that's the only way I know how to exist, and I'm hoping that the ballots will be there and the bots will play a much smaller or only a positive role for it. Thanks, everybody, and I'll turn it over to Tejaswini. And I'm sorry that we stood between you and cocktails, but we do have one more person standing between you and cocktails.
Me. Okay, thank you for an incredible discussion. With this, we conclude our panel discussion. I would like to invite my colleague. I would tell her to wait.
वो उधर भी हैं ये भी तो बोल रहे थे ना
Start with and finish with.
Mayank, we can't
Prashant, I
send you
think
this
you
packet and mail it.
Okay, I would like to invite my colleague Grishma Chauhan to please present the token of appreciation. Thank you. Thank you, Grishma. I would now like to request our legal director, Mr. Prashant Sugatan.
उनको बोलना खड़े होके
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yes. Oh, he doesn't know. You do so well. Okay. I would like to request Mr. Prashant Sugadan, the Legal Director of Software Freedom Law Center India, to please give the closing remarks.
Dear speakers, and all of you have decided to spend your evening with us. Thank you for all the support and engagement. Today we have been fortunate to have an excellent discussion because of all of you on these unprecedented challenges posed by technology in elections. Of course, we do not have a magic wand to ensure that the harms technology are remedied. However, we can ensure we can come up with ways to work together to minimize the potential harm. Thanks to the moderators and speakers, I'm not naming each one of them. As I am standing between you and cocktails. We are also thankful to News Laundry for being the media partner. Please do support independent media by subscribing to them. Let me also extend our sincere thanks to our community partners, Boom Live, a crucial player in ensuring facts are not ignored, and Public Policy Network, ensuring our policies reflect values. Journalists and media have a crucial role in educating citizens about making the right choices, despite the risks posed by technology, including deepfakes. We thank the journalists who are present here. Last, I thank all the invitees who have sat through the discussions. Before ending, let me take you briefly through the different verticals of our work that you all could contribute to. Gyan and Arjun have already taken you through the work that we're doing on AI and open source. We look forward to collaborations in this area. So if you are working on AI as a technologist, researcher, academic, or policy expert, please do get in touch with us. With the internet shutdowns, we are constantly on the lookout for persons who can share their experiences, which we document under the voices section of the internet shutdowns tracker. We track free speech violations as part of a free speech tracker project. Do feel free to go through our website and the section of free speech violations and send in your comments and contributions. Also, we have a pro bono network of lawyers called the Digital Defenders Network. If any of you, your rights are violated, issues have become anything digital, we have the legal capacity to offer help. Call us, and lawyers who have joined us for the event, either online or offline, please do feel free to check out our website and reach out to join the network. We conduct pro bono digital security training for journalists, human rights defenders, and students. Check out security.sflc.in and do let us know if your organizations or networks need a session on digital safe practices. These are simple